momentarily.
Oh, looks like we might be on. We're on, right?
Where is it? Oh, yeah.
Hello, welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting on October 16th, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:01. Tonight, you'll probably notice things a little bit different. The Selectmen's meeting, we got the Budget Committee here as well. So welcome as we review budgets. As we go through them, what we'll do is, usually we don't raise hands, but kind of today with so many of us, and I'll try to go back and forth so we can answer the questions as we get through the budget. Could I get a roll call, please, Beth?
Select Chair, Mr. Coy.
Here?
Select Vice Chair, Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
Selectman, Mr. Britton.
Excused?
Selectman, Mr. Gifford. Selectwoman, Ms. Merscheron.
Here.
And please note for the record, we have Mr. Colby, Town Manager, joining us. We also have several of the Budget Committee members, and we have Ms. Gussler, Recreation Director, Mr. Garlington, Highway Supervisor, Chief Santoro, Police Chief, and we are expecting Mr. Vinton, Library Director, and Mr. Knutson, Chief Knutson, Fire Department.
Thank you. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, you got to lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, is there anyone here for public comment? All right, let's get into the budget. Jen from Recreation is up first.
Hello.
Good evening. All right. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, forgive me, this is my first one of these meetings, so I don't
Well,
really know
I mean,
the
I can
flow.
start, I can at least start off, I know last year, the budget, the requested was $194,111. For this year, the requested is $216,190.
Yes. So that's, it's an increase to the summer rec wages. That's primarily the increase, is a $21,000 increase for summer rec, and that's to keep us competitive where we're on the state line. $12 as a starting point for summer staff is just not cutting it. We're not getting the staff that we need. So we need to start them off at $15 an hour to be competitive with all the companies right at the state line.
And so by doing that, obviously it should make it easier, I'm assuming, to get help, you think, and better help?
Yes. So it should make it easier to find qualified help at that starting pay range.
So that's the biggest increase, and is there,
There's an increase due to the collective bargaining agreement.
yeah,
And then I did increase the groundskeeping maintenance line item. Due to inflation, I increased that $2,000.
now, are there any plans to go up on the summer rec fees with the
Yes,
counselors?
so summer rec is always pretty much revolving. That's how we work out summer rec. So for 2023, we took in 94,000 and we spent 96,000. With the fees being $125 per camper per week. So now that we have to go up in pay, we're going to go up in fees to $150 per week, and that should cover so that we wash right out. Because we don't want to make profit off of summer rec, we just want to get back the money that we put into it.
Anyone questions? Go ahead.
Not yet.
I just had a question on the maintenance. I know in the years past, we've done swale work, right? To clean them out. We dug them out. How long has it been since we cleaned them out, and when's the next time we're planning to clean them out?
I believe they were cleaned out last year, so 2022. So we'll be cleaning them out again in 2024.
Okay, so this upcoming year.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, and I coordinate that with Highway Department, and they're very helpful in taking care of that.
Richard, did you have a question?
No, not right now.
Okay.
No.
All right. Tammy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find, what are the increase for the tuition fees? I didn't hear what you had said.
So last year, each camper was $25 per week with a $40 registration, one-time registration fee.
Okay,
This year, we're going to a $50 registration fee, and then it's going to be $150 per week. Out-of-towners will be $175. We don't get very many out-of-towners because Plastow residents register first, and we're on a waiting list within 2 days.
What is this associated with? Camping, you said?
Summer rec
Summer rec camping?
camp.
What was, oh, camp, it's not camping.
Yeah, it's the summer rec program.
All right. What did you say the tuition associated was?
So it was 125, and we're going to go up to 150.
Okay.
So it's per week. And then the one-time registration fee is going to go from $40 to $50
Okay.
per camper or per student.
And you feel that will cover the
Yep,
increase in
so-
salaries?
If my math is correct, it'll bring in approximately 118,000, and I have estimated to spend out 116,000.
and that includes the increase in the payroll for okay.
And the revenue that we take in, that all goes back into the general fund, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jay.
One more question. On summer transportation, I see, since 2019, I know we've had COVID and all that, but it looks like you probably spent somewhere between $4,500 and $5,000. Last year was 42, and it's up to 6,500 this year. Are you anticipating more?
Well, we bumped it up to
Or
6,500
increased
for
cost.
2023 so
Yeah.
that we could take the kids on 2 field trips a week.
Mhm.
Because spending 5 days out on that hot field gets pretty long. So I added in a second field trip, which drove up the cost of transportation. We take them to O'Neill Cinemas every week now, and it's only $3 a kid, $3 a ticket. So it's actually cheaper to go to the movies than to get Kona Ice now. So
So
worked
that
out
six,
really well.
do you anticipate spending the whole 6,500 for transportation?
Well, that is a ballpark figure. Trying to see what we spent this year.
It's like through September, it was like 4,200.
That's not correct. I'm still waiting for a bill to come in.
Okay,
That's not correct. It'll probably go up about another $800.
okay,
So right around 5,000 to be safe.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
No, I know the difference between $12 and $15 an hour for you is huge. I mean, getting kids in there to be able to have competent kids.
Competent staff, yes.
And for summer rec too, that's, for recreation, that's the biggest program you run all year, correct?
Yep. So that's 7 weeks. That's the biggest program. So, I mean, if you took that out of the budget, you'd really only be left with a $100,000 budget. And then my salary's in there, so you're really talking about $60,000 is what I really work with outside of summer rec.
In this other sheet that you handed out, this is the list of activities that
Yep.
recreation covers through the
Yep, so
year?
you can see all the activities that recreation covers and the accounts that they come from. We do a lot of activities through the revolving accounts so that it's not touching the budgeted money or the general fund. And that works out really well for us.
Could you just talk about that a little bit more, just for the general public's knowledge?
Yep, so we do a lot of senior programs, and all of the senior trips, I run those through the revolving account. So this way, it doesn't hit the budget at all. So it's just money in, money out. The special events come out of the budget. So Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, those 3 holidays is what the special events cover. Then we have concerts. Concerts roughly about $8,000 with with all 8 bands and porta potties. We don't ever have a summer where we get all 8 bands to play. So I kind of lowball that number because of the rain. The rain helps out. I do a lot of school vacation activities. So we go to the movies, we go ice skating, we go various places, and that's all run through the revolving account. So that's not an activity that impacts the budget. Wreath making is probably one of my most popular holiday activities. We get about 60 people, and that's all through the revolving account. All the supplies are covered by what they pay. And then Elder Affairs, they have their own budget, and they focus primarily on getting seniors out of the house so that they're not isolated, especially during the winter months.
Do you help plan those trips too, senior
Yeah.
trips?
Yep, I help plan them all. I work closely with Pollard School we like to have a table set up at their pancake breakfast, and their Easter activity coincides with our Easter egg hunt. So since, there's the crossover with all the kids, all the town kids. So we work closely with the school.
And I'm not sure that everybody in town understands exactly how much you do with the seniors. When you think of rec, you automatically start thinking of the youth, but the amount of work and programs that you put on with the
I
seniors.
definitely see the seniors more than I see the children. Definitely.
Anybody have anything else? Go ahead.
So may I ask a question, please? I think it's important for the taxpayers to see a more transparent presentation of what you do. How can you, as a director, make yourself more transparent on public media so that the general taxpayer has an idea of what you're doing, how you're doing it, where your money's being spent, and how you best present yourself as a needed commodity of the community?
Well, I'd be glad to put up a slideshow on my website. Or,
Could you possibly, so fire department and police department go on Facebook on a pretty regular basis. Could you possibly present yourself that way so that it's not about just us people in this room, it's about our taxpayers knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, how many children are in the recreation program, which makes more kids in the program or less kids on the streets getting in trouble. How can you tell me what you can do to better present yourself to this community?
well, I have a very active Facebook page, Plastow Recreation. I also take care of the Plastow Elder Affairs Facebook page. I put all of our activities all the time onto the community page.
Okay,
Yep, and after Every week of summer camp, I post a ton of pictures each
And where
week
do you post that?
on our Facebook page,
Which page?
Plastow Recreation.
Is there a way you can share that to the Plastow community page?
Sure.
Because for us that are old and no longer have children involved in the program, we don't necessarily follow that page.
Right, I post on the community page every week. I posted today, actually. It's about toddler trick or treat, but I did post today. So I make sure to post quite frequently.
I think it's very, very important, and I'm new to this. It's my first meeting. I've just had oral surgery, so if I sound like I'm talking funny, I'm not talking funny. I'm hurting. But to present yourself as a department head to the general community, I think is huge. It's very difficult for people to come in and say, oh yeah, I support you, if they don't know exactly what you're doing.
Right, I understand that.
So that's, the more transparent any department head can be is a positive.
Okay, sure, I'll gladly post some things.
Thank you for your, for your conversation.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead, Tim.
I know that you do also, we can post on the community, on the government TV also, because we do have a lot of seniors that don't have social media, so that's another thing that I try to get her.
She's on me for that.
Yeah, I'm
She's
always
on
all
me.
over.
I'm putting it on the TV, and
Yeah.
that's, I definitely lack there, because
Yeah.
personally, I don't have cable, so
But
it's one
I
of those
don't-
things that's never
nor
in my
do
mind.
many of us. I mean, I'm very, very tight with my own personal finances, so I don't have the accessibility to see this on cable. So I do sign on to Facebook every other day or whatever. And I do check out the Plastow page. And I do like what the fire department, police department posts. So just my 2 cents worth.
Well, I'll gladly invite you to my page.
Yeah, feel free.
I can do that.
Okay?
The visibility is a big thing.
Yes, it is.
I agree.
Absolutely. Transparency's huge.
And there are multiple pages, so there's police, fire, recreation, emergency management,
Elder
the
affairs.
town of Plastow, elder affairs. There's a lot of groups and organizations within the town, under the town hall, that have Facebook pages, so there's a lot of information that gets put out there.
Questions?
Maybe Danny has to put one for highway. Just kidding.
He'll set up his laptop right inside his truck.
Yeah.
No thanks.
I know tonight, budget doesn't plan on voting on anything. You're gonna do that at your next meeting. We can vote if we want, then that way it gets over the budget. So if there's any discussion on the budget at all? Correct? Make a motion, or we wanna table it?
I'm fine to vote on it now if the rest of the board is. Make a motion to approve the recreation budget for $216,190.
Have a second? Jonathan, any more discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So 400. Thank you, Jen.
All right, you're welcome. Have a good night. I'll see you too late.
All right. Cab. Library, Plastow Public Library is next.
Last one.
Okay. Since I know you all have a long evening ahead of you, I cut our slideshow down by 50%. Instead of 2 slides, it's 1 slide, and I'm sorry it's
behind David and Marco and this crew here.
Well, it's behind you too.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so the bottom line is an increase of roughly 5.2%. For a number of years, we've worked really hard to level fund the budget. And so that was the case between 2019 and 2022. In the past 5 years, roughly half of our lines have either been level funded or actually decreased. And for this year, even though it's a sizable bump, roughly half of that is because of health insurance. Health Trust just released their official new rates for next year, and unfortunately, our health insurance is up 15.6%, and our dental is up 4.7%. On top of that, we also are having some census changes. In other words, the types of plans, family versus two-person, and so that actually added another bump, unfortunately. Back in 2019, we did actually change the types of plans we offer. We used to offer what I think they used to call a Cadillac plan, which is essentially a very high quality, zero deductible plan. And we took that away from staff, including myself, and we switched to what's known as a consumer-driven health plan, which relies heavily on flexible spending accounts and health reimbursement accounts. Now, had we not done that, I mean, we've been seeing savings all along, and this is year 5 of this particular model. Had we stuck with that older, the Cadillac plan, we would actually have a budget that's almost $40,000 higher than it is now. So we do our best to control costs. We did do the LED upgrade a number of years ago, along with the Energy Committee, and we're still reaping, a lot of benefits there, probably saving 50% on electricity costs there. Most of the rest is in compensation. We have essentially an amazing staff, and you guys all know it's hard to hire quality people. It's just as hard to keep them, and our staff is amazing. And so we're trying to essentially, what we do is we do take a look at what surrounding libraries are doing. We do take a look at what the town is doing. And so we've essentially, we try to stay right in the sweet spot and budget accordingly. Lastly, just a quick highlight in terms of, are people still using libraries? The answer is yes. Year over year, we're seeing pretty healthy increases, 5% increase in checkouts. That's year over year. Program attendance is also up roughly 20% over last year. And in terms of where are we relative to the pandemic, or relative to before the pandemic, we're essentially caught up. We lost a lot of ground during those months and years where, we were actually physically closed and where it took a while to get the numbers back up. And so we've essentially finally recouped all that lost ground. So that's the library in a nutshell, but I know you all will probably have questions. So,
Yeah, what are some of the programs, if you want to highlight them, that you run at the library?
oh my gosh.
Just so everyone hears it.
The programs, we have everything from yoga to craft programs to your standard book clubs. We have...
Ask a series.
Oh, yes. Ask a nutritionist anything. I think we had Ask the Fire Chief anything. Some more controversial programs along those lines as well, those were in the news a while back. We have a Friday afternoon movie series. On the adult side, we actually partner with the Historical Society, and both of us qualify for essentially a really great rate for humanities programs, where they have essentially a la carte programs. You read through a roster of presenters, and I think we're each allowed, it's either 3 or 6 presenters at very low cost. And so we essentially max out on our end, and we co-sponsor with the Historical Society. They do the same. They use the library facility to host the events. I think we had one just last Friday, and that's just the adult side. On the kids side, all you have to do is go to our website. We have a tab that says events, and in any given month, you'll just see, just a wall of programs.
And they're regularly filled with waiting lists.
Yeah, so programs, I didn't do an actual count of the number of programs, but for this year, we've had attendance year to date of roughly 8,000 people. So that's, I'm not sure how many days we've been open, but say it's 200. It's a lot of activity. So, and for the children, we have everything from sort of baby level, sort of pre-literacy activities, all the way through teens. So the library really does serve everyone from, birth all the way to the other end of the spectrum.
In the big room, how often is that used? They use,
Oh, well, we just had a call from the Lions saying, hey, we want to use your room. How about this date? Nope. How about this date? Nope. So this is why we shifted to a reservation system where people can set up accounts and they can see all the dates that are available or not available. Yeah, the main meeting room space, the Nelson Room, several years ago, we added a keypad so that the space is now available 24/7. It doesn't matter whether the building is staffed or not. We can close that part of the building off from the main part of the library. And so actually tonight we have a condo association that's meeting there. I think next week we have a condo association and they're splitting it with another group. The room does have a divider, so two groups can use the space at the same time. And at any given year, we have anywhere from 40 to 60 different community organizations using the space, from Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. There's a Toy Truck Collectors Association of New England, which I didn't know that was a thing, but they meet roughly once a month on a Saturday morning. Red Cross does blood drives there. It's a heavily used space, and the fact that it is available 24/7, I think that's a real bonus.
Well, that's increased the use of that space.
It has. Yep.
anybody have questions?
I have one question. The health insurance,
Yeah.
that's just the maximum rate. So when everything shakes down from, I forget who you said, it may come in a little lower, or that's the rate?
That is the rate. We
Okay.
are in, Health Trust is a risk pool.
Yep.
And so we are in the under 50, which is not age-based. I believe it's the number of covered employees. And so we are in the under 50 pool. And to the best of my knowledge, that 15.6% rate is across the board for anyone who's also in that
All right.
pool. And that's our number. Some other things are going down, disability, life insurance, but those are not big expenses for us.
All right.
And when a family plan costs anywhere from 20 to low 30s.
All right. I just wasn't sure if it was similar to what the school district, it comes in as that set amount with the health trust, but then things get shifted around when they look at the usage, and then it will drop down.
Yeah, they're also in a different,
Different,
they're in the July group, we're in the
Okay.
January group.
All right.
So, and I'm also not sure how it works with I don't know if it's called a large employer or over 50 pool. I'm not sure what their rates are. I think, I don't understand why, I thought we were all in one big pool, but it may not. Anyway,
All right.
15.6 is definitely, that's what we'll be paying next year unless, I have talked to other brokers or other carriers, including School Care, which is a Cigna-based plan. I've even looked at the SHOP, which is the small business exchange. I've thought about reaching out to New Hampshire Interlocal, but Health Trust has actually done a great job of keeping rates. I was able to get rates from School Care. They gave me 10 years worth of rate increases, and they were double overall, Health Trusts. So even if we could have saved a little bit of money, I think the hassle in changing, and within a few years, we might, switching back and forth is not a great idea, either for me administratively or for employees, the covered staff. So we feel kind of like we're with Health Trust for now.
Just a question about that.
Yeah.
And when you were looking at the healthcare, Was there an option at all provided to you where, let's say you had a high deductible type plan, but with the caveat that you fund some sort of, let me see, reimbursement pool? The idea being that you fund the reimbursement pool and you go for the higher deductible plan, but then as people submit claims, they also alternately submit them to the reimbursement pool.
We've sort of done that. We're too small for us as an organization to actually manage claims. I mean, my staff does not want me, looking at claims, but we use that model basically. I mean, we went from a zero deductible plan to a plan with a $9,000 family deductible. And so what we've done is we've funded an HRA at 50% of the deductible. That's 45. We match the employees' flexible spending account contributions up to a cap of $2,250 for a family plan. So you have the 45, the $2,250, another $2,250. So essentially the deductible that was there or that is there is covered through these flexible spending plans. And in any given year, we have never come close to spending our maximum liability is pretty high. I forget the number, it's 27 or 36,000 or whatever it is. But staff never use all of that. So even with the contributions that we're putting in, we still come out far ahead, which is how we're managing to save that $40K each year. And I have spreadsheets. If anyone wants to look at this, I have spreadsheets that if I don't look at them every 3 months, I have no idea what's going on. But it works because we're in year 5 and we've saved ourselves and the town a ton of money. I mean, well over 150 grand. So,
And why is the library in its own pool negotiating healthcare benefits?
this predates me. I'm not sure when. It could have been the 1990s. It could have been the 2000s. At some point, the library trustees decided they wanted the independence of being able to select their own health insurance. And so they went that route. And for many years, I think we basically offered almost exactly the same thing as the town. Lori is here, maybe. She may know better than I do, but I know, I joined the library in 2013, and then I decided to blow things up just because, the family plans, if they're costing $30,000 and up per year, we pay, I think, the same as the town, 85% of the premium. It's just a huge nut, and I just couldn't take it. So I started looking at this option. I did say I would be the first person to try it as a guinea pig. I didn't force staff to do this, but they were all, I don't know what the right word is, but they trusted me not to screw up. So they all followed along, and it has worked very well.
Did you compare, at least metric-wise, I know if you're doing it on your own, or at least as an organization, library, have you compared it against what, let's say, the town or other, entities within the town that are paying? I mean, are you doing better than the town, is what I'm saying?
I don't really know what the town is doing. I know their situation's different because they have unions, and the unions, they have an entirely separate insurance package that does not go through Health Trust. So the town situation is a lot more complicated. I mean, I used to have only 2 covered employees, and then eventually it was 3, and now it's 4. And there are way fewer moving parts. So I can't speak to, what it's different, but the same. And Lori and Greg know this stuff, really well. So,
Greg, is there any comparison to what's happening with the library? I mean, are they just competitive or vastly overpaying relative to what other entities in the town are paying?
What Cab had stated earlier was they're part of the Health Trust pool, which is the same pool that we are in part of. And so every employer in the state that belongs with 50 or less employees all saw the 15.4% increase.
And, the consumer-driven part, it's not like that was an easy sell. And I don't know how many covered employees the town has, but with more employees and more moving parts, it gets much, much harder to, health insurance, it can be a huge part of an employee's compensation. And if you start messing with that, bad things can happen. I mean, you have to tread very carefully. And like I said, we were so small that we were lucky to be more experimental. And this is not a completely unheard of idea. It's rare, especially at how aggressively we fund it. And I talked to school care and they're like, oh, you shouldn't do that. It won't work. I have a director who used to work in healthcare as a consultant. And he said, oh, that won't work. I'm like, whatever. I'll take our savings and I'll be happy. It's worked for us. But again, we're tiny. And it's very different when you're dealing with a school or even a town with however many employees.
You have more flexibility.
It's a different ballgame entirely.
Well, like I said, we don't have that many more. We have about 12 that are part of Health Trust. As you stated earlier, the biggest part is through the union and through Allegiant. That's where the police, dispatch, and then the town hall unit are all part of the other health insurance through Teamsters.
Kev, do you offer an opt-out
Yes.
of the health insurance?
And I'm trying to remember, I can't remember if we try to follow the town as much as possible just to keep things simple. So it may be that we offer the employee 50%, don't hold me to this, I'd have to look up our personnel handbook, but we may offer the employee 50% of what the library is saving by them opting out. It's something like that, or maybe 40, it might actually be 40%. So we still come out ahead.
Do you have employees there that opt out of the insurance?
No, we did have someone who did not want dental insurance, but dental insurance is not very expensive, so we don't offer the opt-out. I forget what it's called, a premium or bonus, or there's no it's only for health insurance, just because that's such a big number for
a big piece,
anyone. Yeah. But no one's ever, we have, Anthem does a great job as, they're the administrators of the health plans, and our staff like them. They like our plans. So that's not going to change.
All right.
I have a question. Do we, like, when you're renting out the room or like somebody books, are they paying a fee? Like outsiders, I'm not talking about like local groups that come in, town groups. I'm talking about like outsiders. Like if they want to come and discuss, I don't know, wreath making or something.
I didn't catch the beginning part of the.
I'm like, do you charge a fee to use the room? So like tonight you have a group over there, and do you charge a fee to rent the room?
There's a nice long 7-page policy. Room rentals or room uses in libraries, it tends to get very messy. So our basic criteria is, as long as a program is free and open to the public, we don't charge. So we typically do charge the condo associations, just because those events are really just for the condo people. If there's an outside business that's, even if they're doing a quote unquote educational program, if they're from outside of town and it's clearly at least an aspect of their marketing and outreach, we'll charge them as well. But any group that's based in Plasto, typically, as long as the event is free and open to the public, we would not charge.
So is there a spot here that I'm not seeing that shows like what you've taken in from those?
No, we didn't. In the past, no one's really asked too many questions about the revenue side. So, I'm happy to provide that either to the budget committee or you guys for, any future meetings this cycle. And we get revenue from a number of sources. One is lost books, where if someone loses a book, we charge them, they pay us.
Yeah.
Non-resident cards, anyone who's not a resident who wants a card can pay for one. I think it's $65 a year. What other sort? Oh, passports. Yeah, we're passport agents. So in any given year, we may see anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 in revenue. That typically will not go to offset the budget because we often have nice to have projects that are sort of waiting in the wings. It could be something as simple as, we just got a quote from an arborist. Our trees, we have 15 trees and some are in good shape, some are not so good shape. This was a quote for, a fair bit of money. And we're definitely not going to do all of it. But if we were going to do that, we'd probably use those funds. The stone wall, that was an expensive project. That was paid for by this revenue. The road sign, that was also covered, not in our operating budget, but with the revenue. And the last thing I'll say is the building is 25 years old, and you may see at some point in the next few months us putting out a survey about how people think the building's holding up. Are there any things they'd like to change about it? So the building's probably due for a makeover. It needs new carpets. It needs some new furniture. There's capital stuff, but there's a whole separate capital reserve fund for that. This is more, just a 25-year-old building that's starting to show its age. And so that revenue that is built up would go towards things like that. But I'm happy to share any of that with
Yeah, I
either
know, I would
board.
be interested in seeing it. Just
No,
like-
it'd be good to see, just to have an
Yeah,
idea,
sure,
right?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question concerning item online resources.
Yeah.
This year you had a budget of $8,000.
Yep.
But you spent 14.4.
Yep.
And our first question is, what happened? Why did you have to spend so much? And you bumped it up for 24, but if this is going to be an ongoing thing, are you lowballing the number?
I am lowballing it, in part because our materials budget, it's been level funded for a number of years at 35. And typically over the past few years, what we've done is essentially we've been shifting more funds from print materials to online. So it does sort of come out in the wash. They end up sort of balancing.
Yeah, I was just curious why it bumped up so high. You almost doubled the budget. 8,000 was budgeted to 14.4.
Well, if you look at the previous years, 2020 actual, 21 and 22, those are all at 20,000, 12,000, and 16, or actually 13 and 17,000. We've added a number of new online services. One is called Hoopla, which is, the nice thing about it is everything is available all at once. The other thing that's nice about it is that you only pay for what you use. However, it's become a very popular service. During the pandemic, we had a limit of 8 checkouts per month per card, and we had to cut that in half just because every time someone downloaded an ebook or an audiobook or watched a movie, we were getting dinged, a per use charge. It's basically a rental fee. And so we don't own any of this stuff. It's just an ongoing thing. And so, for example, Hoopla, the usage of that since 2019 has more than doubled. Year over year, it's up 14%. So folks do seem, the transition to digital is happening more and more.
Is that free? Is that free when they do? So you're not charging them or even a nominal fee to?
No.
Is that something that you would entertain?
Except that it is part of the service that the library provides. We don't charge people to borrow books. It's a part of us keeping up with where libraries are going, number one.
Do other libraries charge for it?
All right, so this number is created then by the use of the software, the very software vehicles, rather than problems with your hardware or.
Oh, no, yeah. No, these are all the online resources. Those are almost exclusively research and recreational and informational services that we
Okay,
provide.
So I can understand that, and I can understand why that's generating a lot of interest, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I'm just concerned that you're lowballing the budget, because unless you can show that there's gonna be decrements in other items, it's gonna distort your activities.
Yeah, I think what he's looking at, if you look at history,
Yep.
you've always spent more than the 9,200.
Right.
Well, actually, until this year, this is the first increase. It was 8,000 for a number of years. So, I mean,
No, not what the budget for, what the actuals were.
no, I know, but the 92, that may be, where's my online here? Yeah, at least going back to 20, and I think even before, that budget number was 8,000. So this is the first year of and the reason we do that is essentially, at least when it comes to these boards, we're very sort of bottom line focused. And so, you're right. In general, if we're consistently over budgeting a line, or under budgeting, it would make sense to fix it by increasing it. But, if we didn't adjust somewhere else, the bottom line would be higher. And we don't really like doing that. And so if our end goal is to keep an increase at a certain level, all we're doing is sort of shifting money between lines. And
So I guess what it is, you're comfortable with this number, and if you went over the 9,200, you'd find it somewhere else.
I am. Like I said, we're focused on the bottom line, and and honestly, anytime we approve a budget, by the time we start a fiscal year, things end up getting kind of blown up anyway, just because things happen. So, but we're happy to present these numbers. We do. When it's not like we have different set of numbers for the library. When we do our monthly fiscal reports, the budget numbers are pretty much the same. And what you'll see in the minutes is, the same story as last month. We're over budget on this line, and we're under budget on that line, and it's precisely for that reason. And again, we're focused on the bottom line and making sure that we control costs and that we keep to the budget.
So I noticed, and you mentioned earlier that
Yep.
Your materials is less because this is more. And
Yep.
if you go by your history there, you're constantly budgeting higher and spending less. So is that where you're augmenting most of this against, is your materials?
Yeah, because we view it as content.
$6,000 leeway in there.
Yeah, content can be your physical materials or your digital.
Okay.
And so we sort of view it as one. The other thing worth mentioning, where is materials on here? In at least one of the years, 21 or 22, those are low. Those are low by quite a bit, but we actually had a donation. We had a bequest, and it was specifically said, please use for books. So we said, you know what? We will use this for books. So that 24, just from that one bequest, would have been over $30,000 if we just let it sit in memorial fund or whatever. So sometimes that happens.
Anything else from anyone? Any other questions?
Once again, I would just like to say, because being new to this board, and I'm going through a learning curve, the police department and the fire department on the Plasto page has been very transparent in saying, hey, we had this call today, we had this, we had this, we had this. I'm thinking on Facebook, the average taxpayer doesn't belong to every single page of every single department in this town. I think it would be helpful as we go through this procedure if you could be more transparent. Okay, we had 208 patrons to the library this week. Half of them were children. We had X amount of rentals in the big room. I think the general public and that's who I am. I'm the general public. I'm nobody special. I want to know what's going on in my town. I want to know what my fire department, what my police department, what my highway department, what my recreation department, I want to know what you guys are doing. I don't have the time with everything going on in life to check out 8 different pages. So I guess in my position, I'm inviting you. Could you jump onto the Plasto Town page that everybody goes to see what's going on, to be more transparent, so that if my neighbor comes to me and says, hey, you're new to the budget committee, and why are we funding the library with this X amount of money? Whether I vote for you or against you, that doesn't matter right now. I can give that person an educated answer. And my neighbor 2 doors down works for you, and she's a great lady. And I do use the library. I guess right now, on a learning curve, and don't think I'm not nervous, transparency is really important. I'm asking you to help me to better educate the community to make you the best that you can be without going overboard, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as Jen said, we are also on the town Facebook page. We tend not to.
The town versus and I don't have it in front of me.
No. I mean the community page.
The regular,
Yeah.
the regular page where we see the police department, the fire department posts on a regular basis.
We post there as well. What we don't post is our sort of dashboard statistical updates. I mean, honestly, I don't know.
I think we need that. I think as a taxpayer, us people need that.
I'm happy to provide it. I mean, you'd be honestly the first person who's asked for it.
And you know what? And I'm glad I am, because I'm the one with the big mouth that's asking you for it.
I'm happy to do
And
it.
there's probably 30% of the community that would like to ask you for it. I'm a supporter of the library. I always have been.
Yeah, no.
But once again, and I'm new and I'm nervous. I'm learning, but transparency is huge. And I'm asking you to be as transparent as possible so that I can make the best decisions for all the departments in this town to be the best that this town can be. It's not about me, it's about the town.
That's fine. I mean, we keep these statistics anyway, so it's.
Okay, we'll post them.
It's not hard. Just another thing on our list of things to do. So
It's a 3-minute deal. It's not a big deal.
Yep.
Jay?
Thank you.
All right, last question for me.
Yep.
And Cab, I probably asked you this a few times over the years. Is there any way to find efficiencies within your budget by utilizing some of the town billing payment programs? Like in here, you have bookkeeping, right? Is there any way we can combine forces and town can do bookkeeping to save you some money there or save some money for the
I'd have
taxpayers?
to ask Greg whether he has any interest in that, and then I'd have to also ask my board. I mean, I don't know the history. I mean, there definitely was some history, and I know towns and libraries, sometimes things are great, sometimes they're not great, just in terms of logistics and the flow and all that. I mean, I'm happy to explore it further with Greg. I mean, it'd be more work on their end, less work on our end. But our bookkeeper obviously does 90% of the work, and
Well, she's been at it for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been very pleased with her, knowing the ins and outs of how things work at the library. So I think that's kind of been why we've
Just-
stuck with it.
Yeah, just a question if there's like any, resources that we can share that will help either the town or the library, or if there's anything like that out there that we can do to help reduce the cost a little bit. And
we're
yes,
we're always
we'll reduce
open
the cost
to.
for you guys, but then it will pick up more. On
Yeah,
the
no, we're
administration.
always open to ideas. I mean, we hire our own landscapers. There is stuff that the town already does. They take care of the plowing, and the janitor is officially a town employee.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, we're happy to consider any option, but it'd have to be in collaboration with Greg and my board to make sure they're on board. But happy to talk about anything.
It may not be a worthwhile venture, so I just throwing it out there as an option. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Everyone good?
Just one sort of ad hoc question. Sure. Is there the area in front of the library? You have the stone wall, and then there's sort of a field type effect.
Yep.
Is that some sort of protected area? Is it like a wetland or something to that effect? Or
There are some wetlands there. I've looked for the official state maps where I think this is supposed to be outlined, but to know for sure, I believe you have to hire a soil scientist who actually looks at the soil and the species, but it is somewhat protected.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any thought into leveraging or doing something with that in the front, like in terms of maybe even like thematic gardening of some kind.
We have had a lot of discussion about this on the board, and a lot of proposed plans, but we just haven't settled on anything yet. And, I mean,
Not
it takes
even
a lot.
something that we would pay for as a town or a library, but give somebody maybe an opportunity to,
We've
present something that would be like, sure.
Well, I know
we've talked about working with like UNH Extension and for, what are they called? Pollinator pathway, like educational gardens. We've seen that at other libraries, and even just making space for people, more opportunity for people to use that library area. But yeah, we've.
it does seem like a great space, and we need ideas from folks who both know does it need a certain amount of protection and conservation. Do we like the idea of a pollinator garden? Can we combine that with walking trail and benches, or is it being quote unquote developed more into a more open space? I mean, it's not in my wheelhouse, so
We've had some people reach out. We've had some thoughts, and we'd like to do something with that, but set yet.
we're open to suggestions. I mean, it's always seemed to me like it's underutilized and it's a beautiful space, but we don't want to just rip it up and throw in a playground, or I mean, whatever we do.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, something like UNH Extension,
Right.
where a pollinator garden or something, or if it were something specific to attract.
Well, and I mean, I think that everything that we work on and consider doing with the library, we really are trying to keep our patrons and the town in mind, like what would benefit our community.
Well, I think this, when we do put out this community survey, that'll be a part of it, not just the building, but the library grounds in general. And so, we're very open to ideas, and most libraries are not expert in, exterior exteriors. That's not in my wheelhouse at all. So we would welcome, suggestions and ideas from folks who know a lot more about how best to utilize, what really is a very nice space, and it's right in front of the library, right on the main road. So whatever we did, we want to do it thoughtfully, and make sure it's what the community really wanted.
And a possible food for thought. I know there's people right here in this room who have children who have nurtured from start to finish butterflies that are endangered. I'm not sure if it's through the Rockingham County program or the New Hampshire State Extension Service or UNH. I'm not sure. I could connect you with that person off the record if you wanted it. That might be a real nice summer project for, mom and daughter or mom and son to take in these butterflies in initial growth and foster them to letting them go. Like I said, it's not my position to expose who's been involved in this problem or this process, I'm sorry. But they're very caring people of the community and they've fostered growth with their own children. And there are options out there. I personally do a huge garden every year of sunflowers and then take all the sunflowers to the county nursing homes so that the old people can watch all the animals flourish from the sunflowers. I do it because I want to. But there's a lot of small, not expensive, small projects out there if you investigate it, if you have a space of land.
Yeah, again, we'd be happy to have any referrals from you or from anyone else in the community who can point us in the right direction.
All right.
You know, and growth with a child, to foster a child's growth is the world to me. And it's not something that's hard. It's a little time consuming. It takes a little bit of knowledge. It takes a little bit of understanding and giving on the parents' part. But the end process is magnificent. And magnificent is a wonderful word.
It is.
But back to the budget, you're happy with this and you feel like you can move money wherever you need to, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, we work really hard to present what we really think the lowest that we need to do our jobs, and we would not present a budget that we weren't happy with.
Thank you.
Is it all set over there?
Make a motion to approve $670,525 for the library budget, 2024.
Maybe a second?
Second?
Second by Jay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So it's 400. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for all your work. And
You do a great job.
I mean,
I know it's always crowded down there.
well, anything you guys need, you let us know, and we will get answers for any questions you have, including Tammy, the revenue side.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Just for the record, for the board, in the presentation that we did do the other night, that we had a preliminary number on the library. This number that you approved tonight is slightly higher than what was included there.
All right, next up will be highway.
Staple those together.
And let's see.
Good
Last
evening.
year, the requested budget was $989,108. This year, it's $1,040,364. How are you tonight, Dan?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
For those that don't know me, my name is Dan Garlington. I'm the Highway Department Supervisor. And I would like to add that I've been the supervisor for 26 years, and I really, really like the concept of having a joint meeting between the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. I think that's a step in the right direction to make sure both boards are on the same page at the same time. Do you want me to go line by line, or you want me to just highlight on?
I would say probably just to hight what went up, why it went up. If something's level funded, it's level funded, right?
All right. The first line obviously is the salary line. That's up quite a bit based on a CBA agreement with the town and the guys that work for me. The next line is the overtime line. That's up. Basically, what I try to do each year is I take an average of what we spent the previous few years. It's basically a crapshoot to begin with because you don't know what you're going to get for winter and so forth. So, and that's up a little bit. Uniforms are level funded. You'll see the phone allowance has gone down a little bit because there's only 3 members of the CBA that receive a stipend for the use of their cell phone, their personal cell phone. So twice a year stipend that they get reimbursed for. And if you go down to general supplies, which is basically things that we spend within our garage, that's down $3,000. Some of that stuff has now been generated or it's paid for down through the maintenance department budget. Next line is the vehicle maintenance line item. That's up about $3,000. And that covers the stuff that we need to purchase to service our equipment within the house, with our own people. As most people know, things are getting more expensive. The equipment's getting older, and we do quite a bit inside our own department. Equipment purchase is down $500. We purchased a brand new cordless set of power tools last year, which I was going to spread it out a couple years, so we were able to get what we wanted in 1 year. So I was able to bring that budget down a little bit. The rest of them are level funded. We go over to street sweeping. Street sweeping's up about $1,500. That's basically due to the cost per hour to subcontract that out. That's one of the responsibilities that the town has for our MS4 requirements, which is our stormwater management responsibilities. We sweep our roads. We sweep all the roads or anything that we deal with on the wintertime. We sweep once a year. And then we sweep the roads that we're going to pave before we pave them. The next line is the snow plowing line. That's up about $15,000. That covers the cost of the hired contractors that we hire to help the town maintain their roads in the wintertime. Rates have gone up substantially, you might say, in the last couple of years. It's like anything else. You got to pay good people good money to stay and do the job that we ask them to do. And I will say publicly, we have the best subcontractors in the state. So
Were you able to maintain the subcontractors for next year?
we do. We have all our subcontractors solidified from last year to this year.
So it's all the same. They know the roads.
All the same guys. Yep.
And you're
And then-
meeting with them when, Dan?
I meet with them next Thursday. I generally have, again, as part of our stormwater management system plan, I meet with them once a year just before winter, and we discuss things like expectations, safety, salt usage. I generally don't use my contractors to apply salt, put the salt down, but I want them to be aware of the fact that we put it down, so don't plow it back up again. So communications, like anything else, is very crucial when it comes to the winter time. And when you got 18 to 21 vehicles out there, plus the towns, it's sometimes challenging. So, and if everybody's on the same page and have a good idea what we're going to do, then generally they understand, to stop plowing the roads. We'll let the salt work and plow them back up. Tree removal, that's up $2,000. Again, those are trees that I deem to be dangerous or hazardous. We don't get in the business of taking people's trees down just because they're in our way or any of that. Usually they dictated by, got big pieces falling from them, or in this case, we took down a big tree on Stanwood Avenue that was 2 inches from the road, and it was dropping tree limbs every time it rained. So try to address those proactively versus reactively. We were actually, while we were doing that work, we noticed there was some pieces of tree, limbs that were broken off from previous storms that were, I just had them take them down while they were there. And it cost a little bit more money than I had thought it, but and that's the budget. I'll entertain any questions people might have.
I would imagine for the rest of this year, we want no snow, right?
I would think not, but if I could control that, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you people.
Just looking at last year, because I know we had long duration storms last year.
Yeah, unfortunately, it isn't so much the amount of snow we get. It's the type of snow and how long the snowstorms are.
It's the duration, how long the
Yep.
crews are out there.
Thanks, Stan, for
You're
coming in. Nice to see you. A couple lines popped out at me in the budget. One of them is general supplies and traffic. 610.
Yep.
Over the years, that's budgeted at 55,000. Doesn't look like over the years have spent more than 25,000 out of that line. I also noticed that we had barricades in the description. And I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, maybe the fire chief can, but I saw in the emergency management budget, they had barricades as well. So do you guys share barricades, or are they different barricades?
With different events, we probably could share barricades. The type of barricades they use are the three-piece ones that you, for the most part, I can't speak for the fire chief, but usually you have one end and a piece in the, two ends and a piece in the middle. Barricades we use are folding ones that we can, they're made of wood that we can screw signs to. Cones, we lose 20 to 30 cones a year. And cones not $10 anymore, it's more like $50 a cone, so.
But with that amount being 55, is there any room to reduce that number a little bit? Are you anticipating spending 55?
I anticipate spending pretty close to that. We, a lot of that is for our safety lines, which we just got done doing a month ago. Not sure if that $6,585 does not consider that. That bill was almost $30,000.
Okay.
And even so, I wasn't able to do all the lines that I wanted, Jay, because we ran out of time, we ran out of paint. So scheduling has been so difficult with all the rain and personnel and so.
And then the other one was the drainage. I know, we put money there for emergency issues for drainage, but it doesn't look like you really spent much of that over the past few years.
The 1 year, which was last year, we encumbered the funds because it was really wet. The section that we want to do over on Willard Way was really wet, and our intent was to do it during the winter time when things got frozen, but that didn't happen.
Didn't really freeze.
So I'm in the process of trying to work with the abutters and the contractor to find a way to get that done before the end of this year so that we don't lose those funds that were encumbered. I'd like to, and I've talked briefly with Greg, and he might have talked to you, I would like to use a portion of that money to address some of the drainage issues within the cemetery. I think if we're going to expand the cemetery and do what we need to do to think to the future, I think there's some grading and so forth that should be done. And to protect, for those who don't know, the cemetery that is existing, there were some serious drainage issues when I became the supervisor and we put catch basins in. But I think if we can address it with some grading while we're in the process of doing the expansion project, I think it would be the best way to address it.
Thank you.
Questions on?
I have a
Go
question.
ahead, Dan.
So under the salaries, Dan, what has changed in the past year? Because I'm seeing kind of a jump here.
So you talking about the expenditure part, the spending part, or the budgeted part?
The budget and then, both of them.
Well, the budget itself is dictated by the CBA.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure there was a pretty decent increase within the highway department and other town employees.
That was just
there.
renegotiated this year.
Oh, okay.
The reason why the year-to-date is down because we've been a man short for a year now.
Oh, okay.
So instead of working with a four-man crew, we've been working with a three-man crew.
Okay, that's why I wanted to see what the difference was in like your staffing and.
Anyone on the horizon to fill that spot?
No, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of.
I got a couple questions, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Do you know what the unexpended amounts from 2022 were, roughly, without the unencumbered portion?
You talking about for the drainage project?
No, just at anything, just the total amount of your 2022 budget that you didn't.
I don't know what my portion of that would have been specifically. I mean, there's items within this budget, probably similar to the library and similar to every other department, that you need to make a decision based on what the overall budget's doing. I have line items in this budget that are over expended, snow plow and salt. Those are very important. So through the course of the year, knowing that I went in, that I got to be careful where I spend the other portions of my budget. So I don't look at it as an encumbrance. I look at it as a.
Right. The salt. All right. where there's supposed to be some sort of savings that would be realized from building a larger salt shed so that we'd be able to get a better deal on what we purchase. I mean, have we realized any type of savings since that's been built?
We haven't realized a savings. What we have realized is the ability to carry the salt that we need to maintain the roads. Historically, before this facility over here was put in, we had enough salt in stock for a storm and a half. We have enough salt in our storage right now for 8 to 10 storms. The savings would be, historically, where the price of salt has jumped from one year to another year, if you buy your salt, and it's a gamble, if you buy your salt before April's over, you could potentially save money based on what next year's salt prices are. We don't know what next year's salt prices are. Next year meaning this time through April of next year. This year, the cost of salt per ton went down. It could go up, it could go down, it can stay the same, it could jump $14 a ton in 1 year. And if you buy it at last year's price and then it jumps $14, that's where your savings would be. And the biggest benefit to the salt shed is more of a convenience to having the salt, and the salt's covered. Whereas it wasn't covered at the old facility, it was able to drain out and out under the.
So there's no measurable, I mean, I understand that you have a larger shed, you can have more salt in it, but I just remember previous conversations that we'd be able to buy what we want, house it where we want, and that would be, we'd have a sort of a flexibility to realize some.
And in any conversation that I was part of, to be honest with you, was always the word potential, because there is potential.
Has there been any? I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers and I don't see anything. I mean, it looks pretty much like it's level funded across the board.
I know we did purchase salt last year under the lower state bid price, and we filled the salt shed up.
The year before that, we did, yes.
Right. And to answer, Mr. Anthony, your question as far as what he has for a leftover, it was $282 on his total budget, bottom line.
Right, that for 2022.
Yes, $282.
And how are you set for salt out there now?
We got 2/3 of a shed.
Okay, so
So
we got a
realistically,
storm or
depending
two,
on,
which is possible.
how angry Mother Nature is at me, we
Yeah.
could probably get till 2024 before we need to purchase salt.
Okay. That's the big
My
unknown.
crystal ball is broken. That's in for repairs, so I can't really.
Yeah, no, that's the big unknown.
That's why where that salt, sand, and the winter budget got hit so hard early. That's, that's why it's not full at this point.
And in preparation for this meeting tonight, I was looking through some old past data on what the fall winter season looked like, because I anticipate a question on what do we average for snowstorms between, and they were all over the place.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Bill, they were from no storms to 13 storms to, so
I just hope the moisture doesn't carry through the winter that we've had all summer.
I tell you, it's even without snow, it's been a pretty rough summer just taking care of the rain that we've gotten. So,
Yeah, I mean.
and I'm a true believer in being proactive. So it's important.
All right, good. Anyone else? Questions?
Well, I'd like to start by saying I'd really like to thank you and your department for the striping you've done in town.
Are you more than welcome to read?
It's made a big difference, especially as you get older and you get blinded by the lights coming on and you really rely on that white stripe on the side of the road. I never wanted to admit that, but I just did.
More than welcome. Thank you.
With that said, Dan, and you guys, for a small crew, you guys do a lot. Having been a contractor back in the day when I was young, I'd like to ask you is the rate on your contractors still set by GVW, governed by the state?
Set by the GVW, but not governed by the state.
Who governs it now?
I set the GVW based on my needs.
Okay.
Like I don't hire a 3/4 ton. I don't hire anything under 9,000 pounds.
Okay. With that said, does the town, not you, does the town supply cutting edges, or does the subcontractors supply their own cutting edges?
Subcontractor supplies their own cutting edges.
Okay, so they come in, ready to go, own cutting edges, their own insurance, which is, you have a certain insurance that is required,
That's correct.
which they have to present upfront whether we have snow or not.
That's correct.
And you've had some phenomenal people through the years. Do you still have that line of people lined up?
I have generally the same contractors that I've had in the past. Some I've had for 36 years. Others I've had, probably the least is probably 8-10 years ago was probably the least newest one.
Okay, so Farmer's Almanac and other things say not a lot of cold, a lot of small storms. We don't know if they're gonna be heavy or wet. You and I both know pushing heavy snow versus pushing light snow is two different animals. Are you ready to go and you've got your people lined up, your contracts signed, and you're gonna keep, and I say this seriously, you're the most important person because you keep our streets open so that fire and police can get through. If my neighbor's having a stroke, they can't get to my neighbor's house unless you do your job.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the credit, your department doesn't get the credit that it's due. You know, you don't show up with flashing red and blue lights. You show up with little yellow lights in the middle of the night and nobody knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
Are you, as a department head, ready to go with whatever Mother Nature's gonna give us this fall and into the next budget?
Yep. I'm ready to go the best I can. And I believe that we all work as a team.
You do all work as a team, but you know what? Every engine has the engine with the most horsepower, followed by X, X, and X. Those roads aren't open. I don't care about going to school. We can cancel school. I care that my fire department can get through when my neighbor's having a stroke, and my police department can get through when my neighbor's having a meltdown and he's gonna shoot somebody.
It all starts with that I mentioned earlier, communications.
Absolutely.
We have outstanding communications within this town.
With that said, what can you do to make your department more transparent on the local page? I would like to see, maybe I'm on a kick about this.
You might be pushing it a little bit.
Maybe you need to find
I
some.
think you're putting me out of my pay grade now. Listen, I'll stay up all night, but I don't know if I can do Facebook.
I'm just saying, you know, I think transparency is huge, and in the last 2.5 months since I got interested in taking this position, I've done a lot of research, and I've had a lot of other stuff going on in my own personal life, and what I've learned is the average taxpayer who jumps up and down on the selectman's desk when they get their tax bill isn't involved. And if you can justify to me why there's an increase in whatever department, knowledge is power. Educate me.
Yeah.
And you've known me a long time.
I've been doing this a long time, and I believe, I kind of look at it as the 40-40-20. I got 40% of the people that like the highway department. I got 40% of the people that don't like the highway department, for what reason, who knows? And I got 20% that don't even know we exist. So if I can keep the 20% from folding over to the 40% bad, then I want to believe that I'm doing what's.
Nobody knew your name until we started voting at your office. I hate to say it.
I guess.
I know your name.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying.
it's not why I do what I do. I do what I
know
do
that.
for way different reasons. But thank you. I appreciate it.
And I will tell you, I was one of the 40% that didn't like Dan until he fixed a problem, and now I love him.
So you converted someone.
Come on,
Jumped over. I'll take it.
But if you can do anything to make yourself, even if you get one of your guys to make yourself more transparent, you know, knowledge is power. And when somebody comes to me and says, why did you vote this way? I need to be able to justify, this is why I voted this way. And it's not, I've known you for years, but just because I've known you for years doesn't mean I'm gonna vote for you. It means I need to educate myself, you need to educate me, and we need to educate the public.
Ask a highwayman anything at the library.
There you go.
There you go. That's a good compromise.
That'll be the
Usually
next.
starts with, do I like coffee? And the answer is absolutely.
Well, at my house, you get beer, so.
Yeah, there you go. That might even be better.
Yeah.
But, any other questions? You guys good over here?
I'm good.
Everyone like that?
Make a motion to support the $1,040,364 requested budget for 2024.
Got a second?
Second?
Second by Jay. All those in favor? Aye.
I literally.
400.
I'd just like to say, if there's anybody has any questions after the meeting and need me to answer them, just reach out to me and I'm more than willing to
No, and
sit down with them, or
and then thank
I'm
you
just
for-
not going to answer them on Facebook,
And
unfortunately.
thank you for, I'll tell you what, and then thank you for all you and your crew do, because I know,
Appreciate that. I'll
because I
pass
know
it
people that
on.
live north, and when they come down, they can't believe how much better our roads are than their towns in the winter.
Like I told
I
you,
get
I like
those
to be
comments.
proactive for more than one reason, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you, Dan.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next up will be police. How are we tonight, guys? The coffee with the public though that you had at Dunkin' Donuts. Was that last week or the week before?
Yeah, it went really well. For those who don't know me, I'm John Chandler, I'm the newly appointed police chief. I just had a contract, I've been here for about 5.5 months. Please go gently on me. The other thing is I have my veteran captain, Jason Mazza, who's been here for over 20 years and he's very familiar with the operation here.
All right, so what we had last year, the budget was $2,376,203. And this year, you're requesting $2,480,815. So I guess wherever you want to go and
Sure,
you got a
so
presentation, which is nice.
I do have a presentation. Tab beat me with one slide. We had 46 slides last year. I'm down to 6 slides, so that's a pretty good reduction, but not one.
God bless you.
So as you see in the packets, is everybody getting a packet? So here's a just brief overview of the org chart of our departments. It's all color coded for you. As you see that we have in the red, there's going to be some open positions within the department. We're fiercely trying to fill those positions. As we speak, we have a few candidates who are in the works. That's the overall look of both the administrative side and the patrol side of our department, how it's made up there. So approximately 31 employees between full-time and part-time, and then you see up in the top right in green, we have a prosecution team made of contracted attorneys that handle our police prosecution for us. This is a quick synopsis of our overall calls that our department takes year over year from 2022 to 2023. I will tell you with a little asterisk there is that we switched to a new CAD and RMS system about a year or so ago now. And so statistics for 2022 aren't 100% on target. It only started about April or so. So the first quarter of the year isn't accurately reflected there. But you'll see some of the numbers there. Oh, I thought it was even louder. Okay, so you see there some statistics have dramatically dropped. And those are thankfully in some of the more serious areas. And then there's other areas dramatically increased. And those crimes, a little bit more crimes of violence and some crimes of serious nature. So you'll see our department at the very bottom has increased the call volume around 6.27%. Again, knowing that the first quarter of 2022 isn't accurately reflected there. So officers are working harder. Our dispatchers are taking more calls, and you'll probably see that reflection also. I don't want to speak on the fire chief's behalf, but I know he's provides lots of statistics, and you'll see that his numbers are up. And for those who are aware that the police department provides a dispatch for both police and fire dispatch for the town of Plastow and the town of Atkinson. So our numbers are increasing both at the police side and again, not to speak to the fire side, but our calls are up. So since I've taken this position back 5.5 months ago, there's been several issues that we discovered here at the police department. I'm highlighting just a few here. which will reflect to why you'll see the dramatic increase in our budget. I'm requesting approximately 9.1 to 9.5% increase over last year's budget, because one of the major things overall is that their systems have been neglected over the years of the police departments. I'm not pointing blame at one specific person. I know we had an interim chief prior to my arrival. Prior to that, there was a chief there that Tom may have had some concerns with. What we're seeing is that systems and products and equipment were purchased but never maintained. We bought in 2016 when the building was built, they put in a new camera system comprising about 32 cameras. The system was put in, there wasn't a preventative maintenance contract put in place. No one monitored or checked those cameras to see if they're working. The server wasn't replaced. It was, we just had that replaced a few weeks ago. Now, in that server, just replacing that server fixed many camera systems that were problems that we were having. But that's just one of many things that we found that were not maintained. The radio system continues to have dead spots. We have a subcommittee going throughout the town with the police, fire, emergency management, and also with the Atkinson Police and Fire as well. We're looking over our radio system now. One of the issues we found at the microwave system that was put in a few years ago was of low quality, and have been multiple failures within the whole overall radio systems, some based on the microwave part, some by just topography of the land and ground, and some is just the power of the system. One of the things, staying with the antenna, the radio system, is one of our antenna towers, the one that's behind the police station, is no longer climbable. So when they would fix and repair things on the antennas, they would climb up manually up, strap themselves in, and the technician would go up there and repair the tower. But the tower is damaged, and they no longer can climb that manually. Now, just to fix that tower, they need to bring in a special boom lift. It's about $7,000 just to rent it. And that's supposed to be done every other year that the radio system is tuned. And so that's an increase to our regular radio maintenance budget line item that you'll see. Coincidentally, today, this afternoon around 2:30, we had a company come in and do a third quote for our telephone system. The telephone system at the police department is failing as well. There's no redundancy in that telephone system. Our system went out last Friday afternoon for about 3 to 6 minutes. Our telephone and internet went down, both being Comcast systems, which left us, no one could call us, and we couldn't call anybody over the telephone systems. And the internet went down, which then put a lot of our software down. So we had a telephone company come out today, gave us a proposal. This is the third proposal we've had to replace our phone system that we have, to put in some redundancy. The problem is that we have two telephone systems in the police department. One is just police, fire, and emergency management and emergency services. The other one is a townwide system. The two systems do not talk to one another. You cannot call on one line and transfer somebody to the other line and vice versa. It's totally time consuming. It delays calls for service. And you can imagine you're a dispatcher working alone. You're answering 4 radio systems. And now you're answering 2 different telephone systems. And that just is a recipe for disaster.
It's going back to tin cans and string.
We're doing that, and Morse code is coming as well. So
What can we do to change that, like moving forward? Like what are we looking at?
sure. So one of the line items you'll see on my budget is approximately $20,000 for a new telephone system. We've had quotes $15,000, $17,000, $20,000. And there's a significant difference between the 3 different systems. The system came in today. They're looking at coming in and replacing all of our hardware and our software, which, although it would be a $20,000 upfront cost, month over month, we could realize anywhere from $400 to $600 a month in savings for billing. And again, just brand new, fresh information from 2:30 this afternoon.
And then the 2 will be able to communicate. So all of the police, fire, and then the outside will be able to communicate.
Actually, we're going to eliminate 2. Well, we're going to go down to 1 telephone system. So instead of having 2, we're just going to have 1 system.
Shared by everyone.
Shared by all us and police and fire as well.
Is this a one-shot deal? Like, once we do this, it's over with? We don't have to do this again?
Well, like anything, things wear down and wear and tear, right? So computer by computer, the day you deliver it, it's at least 6 months behind on technology. So just like the server and the camera system was put in 2016, here we are almost 7 years later, we had to replace it. Things do wear out, technology does change. So to answer your question honestly, it could, at a certain point, it may need to be replaced. But right now, it's a minimum of a 5-year plan of the phone system. It has a longer shelf life than that.
And do you have the expense over a 5-year time period, roughly?
Well, it's a $20,000 line item budget just
Okay.
to replace the system all at once.
And if there's any like software upgrades, anything like that?
It's all included.
It's all included in that?
Yes.
And
For
then we'll
5
be
years.
saving 400 a month, right?
The number I got this afternoon, I haven't looked at the number.
Okay.
The sales presentation was we could save between $400 and $600 a month on billing cost.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I asked if that was, and I didn't mean to cut you off, ma'am, I'm sorry, Tammy.
That's okay.
20,000 over 5 years, is that include the maintenance and service and everything to keep it where it needs to be?
But the new system definitely wouldn't need any type of service contract for the first year. Everything's covered for the first year. And again, this is brand new just this afternoon, so I haven't even digested everything of this newest proposal. There is a per line, per month fee that will include a basic service contract in that as well. So to buy an additional service contract wouldn't be needed. Even the technician said to us today that you're better off buying the remote access that comes at the per month fee rather than buying a master preventive maintenance plan, which you're not going to need in the first couple of years. Absolutely. And it would just be an expense that would be not needed. But going forward, to answer your question, and I'm sure others in the room, every time we're looking at systems now, we're looking at buying preventative maintenance contracts with this stuff, as opposed to you pay for the preventive maintenance contract as opposed to having none. And these technicians are coming in at $200 an hour for some of these systems, not just telephone, camera systems, and all these other systems. So, IT, Greg, we were in a meeting last week. The numbers we were hearing is this high-skilled technical labor is big money. So sometimes you're better off buying a permanent maintenance plan. So it's like an insurance policy, right? You buy it, hope you don't need it, but if you need it, there's insurance. Because the day is you don't buy it, you don't need it. You're paying $200 an hour, 4-hour minimum. There's $1,000 just to have somebody walk in the door to say, oh, all I needed to do was this. But It's a gamble of buying preventive maintenance plans. But that being said, we noticed that the failures went on and on with other technology within the department. Our intercom system that we have in place right now is a complete failure. It's been disconnected. It does not work. That's a video camera system that goes from the lobby of the police station and the fire station to come back to the police dispatch center.
Just a question, when you say it's a complete failure, like what? Expand on that narrative.
Again, without having a technical background and knowledge, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. We can power it up, and that's all it does. We've looked at instruction manuals. We talked to some people without bringing a technician in. Again, to pay somebody $200 an hour to fix an intercom system is costly.
Now the telecommunication system, is it all integrated with its internet? Is it all online?
No, it's actually going to have.
You don't have a hard line. You don't have a hard line phone.
It's going to be 3 It's going to be primary, secondary, and tertiary backup. So there's no redundancy now, or a little bit of redundancy there has failed. So we're going to have 3 levels of redundancy.
But it's part of that redundancy. Is it a hard line as opposed to just being completely dependent on?
There is a requirement for hard lines for police and fire, so that will be part of that.
Quote unquote copper lines will still exist. They're not really copper anymore, but there's copper line. We'll also have our own in-house server as well. And it'll also be internet based as well. Moving on to one of the next bulleted item is vehicle repairs surpassing the vehicle's value. We have 2 vehicles currently just went for inspection stickers 10 days ago or so. Both of them failed inspection. One car at minimum to start off with is going to be about $2,600 to fix. Value of the car is just under that. The other vehicle is about $1,200 to fix. And again, the trade-in value for that. They're both vehicles well over 100,000 miles. I have a chart actually here to look at numbers. But so over time, vehicles need to be replaced. There's wear and tear. Our officers are out there driving 24/7, 365 out there, and we rotate our vehicles. So we don't always driving the same cars at all times. We usually assign 2 officers to a car, right? And so we try to keep them all evenly wearing out. And so again, vehicle costs are going up, skyrocketing, projected today. If we buy a 2023 model brand new, compared to a 2024 model of a vehicle, it's a $10,000 increase. So we're trying to secure 2 2023 vehicles before they're gone.
What are they running roughly now, fully equipped? Ballpark. I know you're
Sitting-
not going
you're
to give me
sitting
an
down?
exact.
2023 model will be about 72,000.
Okay.
2023 is 72?
2023, 72. 2024 is going to run us 10,000 more, about 82,000.
And that's fully outfitted.
That's everything done. Turn the key, we're ready to go.
And the projection of the life of the $82,000 vehicle is how many years? Rough, years and mileage, give me an idea.
We're putting roughly 20, depending on the cruiser, but 20,000 a year roughly on a new cruiser. We just got 2 new cruisers last year. One of them is up to 30,000 already. The other one we got last year has about just under 20,000. So we're averaging between 20 and 30,000 a year on a cruiser.
And what's the average life of a cruiser right now? And I understand, I'm a very strong supporter of maintenance. I don't want you responding to code 3 and losing a ball joint going down the road. I don't want your life put in danger. Because I can replace that unit as a taxpayer. I can't replace your life to your family. With that said, the stuff that needs to be fixed, what kind of maintenance are we talking? Are we talking little stuff or are we talking big stuff?
It was the 2 that need to be fixed at field inspection they're both 2016 year vehicles with over 100,000 miles on each of them.
And what did they fail?
It was catalytic converter issues on both of them.
Which is common once you get a vehicle over 100,000.
And what was the mileage on those vehicles, sir?
One was
Roughly?
104,000 on one of them, and the other one's just at 106,000.
Yeah, plus those vehicles idle a lot too, right?
They do.
This
Yes.
crazy compilation of for every hour idle time is like 500 hours, 500 miles.
Right, because I know, and they're not highway miles, I know that.
But all I'm saying is if it's not a high-end repair job and it will keep you safe, I don't dispute doing a repair job. If it's something that's gonna cost a lot of money and it's still not gonna keep you safe, my focus is keeping you safe. And I was just looking to see how long we're getting out of a new cruiser.
So, and we do appreciate that. Right now, both of them seem to be emission type of failures. The mechanical failures at over 100,000 miles will happen rapidly, especially with winter coming.
Yeah,
and potholes.
it's like your own vehicle. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, on the cruisers, replacements in your CIP plan?
We have a replacement.
Yeah,
I presented something to
We're
Greg
actually
today.
addressing that tonight. We'll be addressing these tonight. It's on our agenda for later tonight.
Okay.
The
I
2
just wanna
cruisers.
Make sure that, normally these kinds of purchases of replacements are part of the CIP. I just want to make sure that's going to happen.
Right. And also the other thing is to show that we're severely over budgeted, overspent, I should say, on vehicle maintenance because of these cars are taking a beating after a while, just wear and tear of 100,000 miles. That's just to get it to pass inspection. I'm not even telling you the amounts of money we put into those vehicles prior to this. So my point of bringing this up is the fact that our vehicle maintenance line item is significantly higher than it's been in the past to maintain these vehicles. And those are just 2 that we highlighted to you. There's a lot other vehicles with high
On
mileage.
the new vehicles, what's the lead time to get one outfitted?
Months.
It's
in about 4 to 5 months.
Okay, I'm
right
just
now.
curious.
So,
I know with the fire vehicles, it's like.
yeah, they were saying
It's like years, so that's why I gotta
if we were to
ask.
drop one off, they said basically this week we would get in about 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
I have something. So didn't we have something with the outside details a couple of years back where we were like with the money that we got from the outside details, we were buying cruises or rotating them? Whatever happened with that?
That is being addressed tonight. At last town meeting, we dissolved the outside detail fund. We put $100,000 as seed money into a cap reserve fund for cruiser purchases. That was in hopes of a cruiser and a half, if you will, or a cruiser, but also to have good seed money. But now, in a year's time, we're looking at a 23 or a 24 eating up most of the 100,000. So where the thought was 1 and a half, maybe 1 and 3/4 cars. Now we're talking at 1 and 4 tires. So,
So do we up the detail? Price?
the detail is a separate fund that, that pays for the detail expenses.
You get the
We just
detail officer
cannot,
and the detail vehicle. Should we now consider looking at raising the price of the unit that sits beside the road with the lights flashing, looking pretty, while our officers are on the streets? Should we consider looking at upping that rate, even if it's $10 per hour?
and I did not catch your first part of your question, but the detail is a separate fund. We just cannot raid that anytime we want for that money. So raising by $10, $20, $100, the money stays separately. And then we would have to go through the whole process of dissolving and reestablishing. They do have some vehicles, and 2 or 3 that are just dedicated to details that are completely off the books, the general fund books, if you will. Gas maintenance and any repairs are paid for out of that detail fund. Because the detail fund had generated so much excess money, that's why we did what we did back in March, to be able to access some of that to help the general fund, help the taxpayers, but also replace vehicles that unfortunately was put on hold for a number of years, and now we're paying the cost of that and the problem of doing what we did, several years ago, because we have multiple cars that are over $100,000. They need repairs, and that replacement process was kind of put on hold several years ago as well. So we're hoping with the CIP to kick that off again and get into a good place. The problem is, and I can't believe, the 2 cars that we bought with ARPA funds already have 20 and 30,000 miles. So, here we had ARPA that we're hoping to dig us out of a hole. Well, I feel like we're maintaining status quo, if you will. So.
And like in a private sector, vehicle costs have dramatically increased due to the shortage of vehicles, chips, and manufacturing the parts and equipment need to go inside them.
Yeah, let's let you finish the presentation, then we'll have many questions
All
after
right.
that. That way you can at least get in what you need.
There were a lot of systems and equipment reluctancy of repairs done over the years, and we're trying to get caught up on all those and figure out what they are and what it's going to take to fix and replace those. One of the second to last bulleted item was officers' uniforms. We're just not that. They were not uniform. Officers were given an allocated amount of money to go out and buy uniforms. It fell to the wayside of standardizations. You'll see one officer with 1 pair of pants, an officer with a different style of pants, an officer 1 jacket, another officer. There was no uniformity whatsoever to the uniforms. You'll come in a roll call, there'll be 5 officers in roll call, you'll have 5 different uniforms and looks that are going on. There was no standardization. Whatever standardization sort of fell to the wayside, and its officers' uniforms have become worn and mismatched, and we're looking at replacing those with some better quality equipment and uniforms that will be standardized. And then, so that was one thing that felt as well as these others. And I also mentioned the telecommunications, the internet, telephone, cable, and radio budgets were all severely underfunded year after year. But that was probably mostly because of the wear and tear of all that equipment and all those systems that kept failing, and I had to spend extra money to fix them. So we've boosted up the request for money in those light items to account for aging equipment and keeping them up to date and make sure they're up and running. You asked some others about revenue. Here's a quick synopsis of some revenue that our department has taken in over 2023 of outside details at over almost $250,000, and their requests for copies of reports, parking tickets, pawnbrokers fees, hawkers and peddler fees, fingerprinting fees, and so on and so forth. That's just some of the money we brought in. That was as of around noontime today. No sooner I printed out your presentations, a couple of those numbers increased by just balancing out what was today. So we are bringing in revenue. It's coming back and going right back into the general fund of the town. 2024 budget, you'll see that the budget request is 2.6 million, just over $2.6 million. As in most budgets, 83% of the budget is made up from salaries. That includes regular salary, overtime, stipends, and et cetera. So that's all combined together, which is the bulk of our budget request. This, as I mentioned a little while ago, the budget request is 9.1% increase over the 2023 budget that you have in front of you. And again, those increases are mainly due to increases in wages. Currently, as we speak, there's negotiations going on for the new CBA and anticipated costs there. Fuel costs, as you know, are increasing, not only for the public sector, for private sector, but public sector as well. Equipment purchases, I mentioned on some previous slides, of the vehicles, the uniforms, the software, the hardware. Higher costs of goods, as we're all affecting at home as well. The shortage of things is just increasing the value and increasing the cost of that. Vehicle repairs, vehicle purchases, and again, fixing cameras, phones, and the intercom system, all stuff that we had to line by line, add a little bit more money on, to either fix what we have now, replace it, and then to keep it maintained once we get it up to workable status. And then the other thing is the last line on that last bullet is the state of New Hampshire has now adopted a standardized police accreditation system statewide. Part of it is voluntary and part of it is mandatory. And we are joining with our fellow communities around us and other towns and police departments of complying and joining the accreditation process, which could be a whole separate presentation another time. At minimum, it's $550 just to sign in the software, another approximately $1,000 or so to join. And then if we want to buy the software, the other software to support that and make a lot of work easier, tracking easier, and cut a lot of labor hours down to rewrite policies is about another $7,000 increase, another $7,000 worth of software. So you'll see that our budget is higher, 9.1 to be exact, over last year, but it's again to fix all the things that we found in the system since I've been here in 5.5 months. And again, that's only 5.5 months of turning things over. That nothing else that I haven't even paid attention to yet.
We'll stop turning things over.
Exactly. So in the fields and turning stuff over.
And one thing I want to say, thank you to everybody up there. I'll tell you, since you've come on, it's been a breath of fresh air compared to when I became a selectman like 3 years ago. It really is. I love how you go out and you've reached out to the community. I've seen you with ice creams with the kids at Summer Rec. The coffee with an officer, I think that's a good idea. You've become so visible. To Margot's point, would you agree? They're very visible out there.
The more transparency, the better.
But I mean, more so than we ever had before.
Well, we've had some rough bumps in the road since, God bless his soul, Steve Savage has passed. You know what? God bless Steve. Yeah. We've had our bumps and now we're moving forward and we welcome you and we invite you to do the best that you're capable of doing. This is a big increase, but we'll work with you.
The question I had is before from the paperwork we had, it's 2.4 million, and from the presentation, it's 2.6. Do we know where that difference is? So when we go look at the lines,
the biggest increase in that is now that Chief Santoro has had an opportunity between he and Captain Mazza, feeling that the command staff need another position in the command staff. And that is the big driver in that difference.
Because just the difference in the numbers, right? That's why I want to know.
Yes, and the increased expected costs of the new CBA that's coming down the line as well.
Okay, so you're taking that into account?
Yes.
The new CBA, possible. We haven't even started really talking about. Very briefly, right?
We're just with the numbers that we have coming anyhow, that we have to stick by, whether it passes or not. There's already numbers coming. There's already a commitment to pay the officers with the contract they're under now.
Right, so you're looking at a proactive.
Yeah, and just to mention, by the way, you mentioned coffee with the cop program and the ice cream. Side note, those are no cost to the community. Market Basket donated a $100 gift card for us to buy the ice cream to give to the kids, so there was no cost to to our budget of the town for that. And the Coffee with a Cost program was a donation by Mrs. D, who owns several Dunkin' Donuts nearby. And she provided the coffee, the donuts, and a gift card. So again, no cost to the taxpayers here in town.
But no, I think they're great. I like those events. So thank you for those.
Sure.
Questions?
One question.
Go ahead, Dave.
Just curious about the impact of not having the courthouse here in town. Where do you go to do your trials, and what's the impact been on your overtime and travel?
So I'm going to let the captain answer the difference between, we go to a couple different courts for a couple different reasons.
Yeah, so we've transitioned to going to Salem District Court now instead of the Plasto District Court since it's closing. So it has minimally, it's impacted our budget as far as overtime goes. We do have to cover minimal overtime if an officer gets subpoenaed to court and has to testify. The way the court proceedings work now, it's far and few between. We don't testify like we used to. There are more pretrial hearings. Our attorneys take care of a lot of the pleas before the officers actually go to trial. So testifying is at a minimum now. We really don't have to send many officers over to Salem. We also utilize Brentwood Superior Court if it's a felony trial. That's more time consuming. That could be a couple days that an officer's has to be subpoenaed to testify for. But that's also very rare, but we're able to plan for that. So it has a minimal impact on our budget. We're able to utilize the officers we have on the road to cover the shifts if somebody has to go to Salem for the morning.
That was my question about the court. And, well, another thought is, are you getting rid of the crossing guard altogether?
It's within the school district's budget now.
Okay.
It's
All right.
not under our
All right.
purview anymore.
So I'm sure I'll see that when I look at it next week.
I have a question on revenue. Is there any revenue that's generated from Atkinson and our dispatch?
I'm going to defer to Greg on that. We're actually speaking with the town of Atkinson now to renegotiate the contract for us to dispatch for the community.
And the answer is yes. We're finishing up a 5-year agreement, somewhere around 40 to 45,000 per year.
How much, Greg?
40 to 45 in that general vicinity.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hit you with some questions.
Okay.
Chief, with all due respect, what is your total sworn personnel number at this time?
If all the positions will,
I want to know what you've got on the books right now, and then I'm going to ask you how many you're down.
okay. So we're slated for 18. We have 5 openings. We have 13 sworn officers.
You've got 13 and you're down 5.
Yes.
What is your total full-time, non-sworn personnel within the limits of the department?
6 full-time dispatchers, 2 administrative personnel full-time that are civilian, non-sworn persons.
Wait a minute, 6 and 2.
Yeah, so 6 dispatchers. That includes a dispatch supervisor, 4 full-time dispatchers, and then a administrative assistant, confidential executive assistant. That's 1 person, and a records clerk. So that's 6 and 2.
So you're saying behind the scenes, so do you still have, years ago, there was I can't remember the name of it. So you're telling me that you've only got, after your dispatches, you've only got 3 people in the building that are doing UCR criminal code work, court dockets, and all that other stuff? You're telling me you've only got 3 additional people in the building?
Yes, the captain does a lot of that reporting, as well as our records clerk and our administrative assistants. And there's a color-coded chart in your handout as well. It signifies the vacancies, what positions are full-time and what positions are part-time.
Okay, and what's your total part-time staff right now? And how many are you down?
We have a part-time animal control officer. That position is full. We have a part-time communications dispatcher. That position is full. We have an on-call part-time Spanish interpreter as needed. That position is full. And then we have 2 retired police officers who work details, and those positions are full.
Well, they're no expense to us, correct, as a town, because they're working a detail, the detail pays the salary?
Approximately $1,500 we're allocating for training that they need to keep up with as it relates to the department, and for qualifying them, taking them out to the range to make sure they're annually qualified with us and any of those.
Speaking of the range, what are we bringing in for revenue for other towns that come to our range that shoots all the time?
There's no there's been no cash exchange since I've been there. Right now, everything is done in goods and services. The contract does say it could be cash or goods services. So some departments have been doing it. Come in, they provided active shooter training for us at no cost. They also supply, sometimes they bring a case of targets, leave them at the range for us, backings for the range for us, building frames to hold the backings and the targets. So right now, all the services have been in kind. Any new contracts that we've been drawing up, we're raising the $2,000. I don't have the number in front of me, so I'm sorry. I think it's $2,000. We're upping that level now to a higher level of either cash or in-kind services.
And once again, as far as I'm concerned, as long as our guys on the streets are well-trained and have as much hands-on, unforeseen situation, drama, whatever, that they can ascertain, I'm all for it. I didn't know if the range was actually bringing us in any money. Because my house, I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Animal control, actually, no, the canine unit. We have a dog.
Yeah, well, we don't have an officer.
So currently, we do not have a canine unit for the department. We're anticipating, we have an intern starting with us tomorrow, a no-cost intern to us as well, by the way. Starting tomorrow, once they get acclimated to the department and get orientated, they're going to be working on a project to do the research on the costs and expenses to re-implement a canine program for the department. So as you'll see, there's an line item that for the past 2 years or a year and a half now hasn't been used, but we're just putting that money as a placeholder. So when in fact, if we get the canine program going up and running, we're not going to be looking to now fund something ask for something that isn't funded.
With that said, would we have to hire an additional officer who is willing to get canine certified? That Boston School is very time consuming.
So we wouldn't hire another additional officer. It would be an assignment to one of the officers that are already out on patrol.
And do we have officers that are interested in ascertaining that position?
At least one, if not two.
Okay. People that are looking at being long-term loyal to the town of Plaster, or somebody that we're going to certify and they're going to shove off?
So we anticipate this person to stay, or the one or more officers to stay, and we're discussing today whether or not there's some sort of contract we can have them enter into, and the legalities of that.
Anybody have anything else?
I just want to say thank you for all you do for the town of Plastow. I love seeing you guys out and about, and I know Mr. Mazza from dance work, so it's all good.
It's our pleasure to go out and serve the residents and the businesses of the community.
Thank you so
I've seen a lot
much.
of you, but you guys are great. I can't say enough about you guys.
Yeah, we have them out there showing up in events and on patrol. So
So I'll make a motion.
Yep, go ahead.
Just one last thing, just your whole presentation where you're talking about, you did an inventory of things and shortcomings and such. Is there an ongoing book of business type review that you put in place so it isn't just sort of an ad hoc, like I just noticed the intercom system hasn't been working for a year or two, but rather something saying that these are the things that there's a schedule to go through, check for adequacy for various, maybe high-end book of business type items and things like that.
So we're building that as we're going along. There's obviously the high risk things such as firearms inventory, radio inventory, ammunition inventory, property and evidence inventory that's mandated and required that we have a.
Well, it's a telecommunication one that seems a little like that shouldn't be like a lightning bolt out of the blue, or if. I mean, I seem to remember us talking about a telecommunications upgrade and things like that, and then to say that people are surprised that, oh wait, none of it communicates, or oh wait, it's all going through Comcast and the server's down and now the phones don't work. That seems to kind of be
I think what we
low hanging fruit in terms of
what we
like
thought in the past and what was reality were two different things. And I think that's what it is. Now we're getting reality, and we finally have someone in place that's bringing us up where we need to be.
But I think the question is more, is there a process in place for this type of review of that type of stuff?
So what I did when I came in is I met with every employee individually and listened to what their a little bit of their background, a little bit of their history, and the pluses and minuses and the pros and cons and what they see as strengths and weaknesses with the department. And we learned pretty quickly, not only just by talking to people, but maybe just listen to radio transmissions, that it wasn't working. When phone calls were coming into me for dispatch, through dispatch, and they couldn't transfer a call to me, I'm like, why can't you transfer a call? And they go, oh, by the way, Chief, the two phone systems don't talk to each other. So right away, I was learning from those veterans like the captain here who was here and say, tell me about the department, tell me about the history here. And I was learning that. And as we're doing that, now we're saying, all right, so now on, we get this new phone system or camera system, whatever it is, we're going to have a preventive maintenance contract. We're going to be checking on this stuff. And I will say part of the police accreditation system runs like it does in Massachusetts, where I was a police officer for 33 years. They have a very strict accreditation system, which has a lot of those checks and balances in place and requirements that you have to comply with. So it helps build that as well.
Was there any the previous contracts, if you paid, to have a communication system put in, I mean, was it advertised as be able to communicate with the existing system? I mean, is that just that, no, we didn't buy that upgrade at the time, or
I think,
or it's a deficiency that someone should be sued for?
well, I think it was just it's a whole new regime now, right? So I think I know you can say it's an excuse, but I just think things were probably done a certain way for certain reasons.
I'm just saying, I would say,
we're not right.
I would just say that that's not, I know it's a new regime and appreciate that, but I would say that if that was the accepted way of doing things, I would say that that's sort of negligent and maybe even unprofessional.
Not disagreeing.
Okay. Is there any money to be clawed back from a communication system that doesn't communicate?
I believe the system that we have now was a lower zero cost from Comcast, if I'm not mistaken, that was promised to be able to solve a lot of these issues, and apparently it hasn't. So
I'm sure it's pretty expensive, that system, right? High-end wise.
I'm not going to speak to something. I'm not going to take a guess at an answer. I would have to look into it, but.
Okay.
So one other thing I'd like to ask as I look at this, and once again, I'm new. I'm going through this and I'm trying to read it and make sense of a lot of things. And then we get into the dispatch, PD dispatch salaries, part-time, overtime, et cetera, et cetera. Is dispatch come strictly under police? Is it shared with fire, or is it its own entity?
The police department, the communication department falls under police department's budget. So we pay out the salaries for, and everything else that falls under both the full-time and part-time dispatchers.
So dispatch comes under the PD,
Yes.
even though, whether I call 6816 or the other one, so even when they get a fire call, it comes under the PD. It comes out of your budget.
Yes.
And are you still getting, for coverage for Atkinson, are you still getting some funds from that contract that I believe expires next year?
It expires this year, and that was the question. We get between $40,000 and $45,000 from Atkinson.
Okay. And is that just Atkinson PD or Atkinson Fire, or both combined?
Both.
Both combined, okay.
Yes.
But the actual dispatch budget comes out of the PD?
That is correct.
Has it always been like that?
As long as I remember,
As long as I remember,
10
I'm
years.
going back, I'm going back 1984. And it was a PD line item budget at the time. So that's why I'm asking.
We have thoughts and discussions about breaking it out into its own department. We just haven't, with the changeover, in that,
I don't know if it would
department.
have to go to its own department as opposed to maybe both departments contributing. Why hire two people to do one job? And the fact that on several shifts, there's 2 people plus a supervisor present, I struggle with, but that's my own projective. And I will always struggle with it, knowing what it used to be.
Go ahead. So I make a motion for an amended budget of $2,603,057 for the police budget for 2024.
For a second?
No way.
I'll second it.
Second by Tammy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. 400. Thank you guys very much. I
Thank you for the
appreciate it.
support of the members of the police department.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. All right, we get to move on to the last one of the evening. I'm good. I'd say take a break right after this. So next up will be the fire department. The requested budget in 2023 was $969,000, $130, and the requested for 2024 is $1,534,503. And I'm sure the chief is going to have a lot to
have a lot to discuss tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You had to come with a fresh picture too, huh?
I come with a fresh picture, right? So for the ones that don't know me, I'm Chris Knutson. I'm the fire chief and director of emergency management for the town of Plastow. First, I'd like to recognize this meeting tonight and thank you for combining both of these. I don't know who was the brainchild over that, but it is really helpful when we have a big budget to discuss to have both parties here tonight to help save some time with that. And then I would like to give a quick plug to our department in the junior fire program that just now partnered with Timberlane Regional School District to offer extended learning opportunities. So our junior firefighters now that are participating in that program can earn up to 2 high school credits for graduation, which is wonderful to be able to do that. And then lastly, our fresh picture right there, I got to brag about our staff that responded to that call. This is where their dedication to training and commitment and engagement with emergency services paid off. A quick response to that house fire saved that house to where those families could sleep in their bed again that night. Nothing necessarily bad about being a call department, but if we would have been a call department, that house would have been gone too. So this is what the money does to help get back to the community. And if you follow our Facebook page, which I think Margot does, you can see that successes like this call right here, not just once every so often, it's quite often that we're making a tremendous impact to the community. And that's going to segue into why we are requesting a pretty large increase in our budget, which is going to be offset with a pretty large amount of revenue that's not tax driven. So I understand that the budget has to be put out with the liability expenditures, but I'm also going to be talking about revenue that we're going to be bringing back in to help offset most of that. The biggest driver in our budget increase is moving away from our contracted ambulance provider and hiring staff to staff and respond to medical calls where we'll be transporting ourselves. If you've been following some of this on Facebook and in the board, this is nothing that's new. To kind of give some ideas here, our contract that we are currently under is what they like to call a zero bid. Some people like to say it's free, and it's not. There's a lot of revenue being generated by our taxpayers through their insurance carriers in it. There's not a subsidy fee, so that's what they call it, zero bid. So right now, our current contract provides 2 ambulances for 6 towns: Plastow, Atkinson, Hampstead, Sandown, Danville, and Newton. So if you think like that's a lot of area for 2 ambulances, I'm going to assure you that is a lot of area for 2 ambulances. If you just look at the population alone, those 2 ambulances are trying to protect daily 60,000 people. So you could see that just in that itself is defining a need to look further in, is this adequate coverage? Okay. Like I was talking about before, we're currently under a free or zero bid contract. Our vendor notified us this last May that contract is going away and come March 2024. And now they want to start charging us for the services that they're providing. Again, those 2 ambulances aren't enough. So we asked, what would it look like to add change to the system? If we wanted to stay with this group, if we wanted to stay within those 6 towns, and we wanted to add a 3rd ambulance, what would that cost? What would it cost for us to contract an ambulance for the town through a private contractor just to have an ambulance for our town? And then what would it cost to provide that service through the fire department, through the town, and not pay a contractor? So this has been on my plate for about the last 18 months. So once all this is done, I don't know what to do with my hands, right? Because this has really consumed a lot of my time as a fire chief the last year and a half, trying to look into all the problems that we currently have and then to come up with the best solution for not just an adequate service, but to the taxpayers as well. So back in August of 2023, we sent out an RFP, a request for proposal, for an ambulance for our town only. And the other towns sent out requests for proposals with a a la carte type of system where they could choose 1, 2, 3 ambulances, fly cars. There's a whole mix of different things that we could have chose with if we stayed into the system. What that revealed is that adding a 3rd contracted ambulance would cost Plastow between $300,000 and $1.1 million. Okay, 300,000. I'll explain that number. 300,000 is if all 5 towns or 6 towns stayed into the system and we all paid an equal amount of money. I could tell you that the discussions with the groups, that was not favorable. The towns wanted the cost to be shared per usage of ambulance. We're a really busy town. We're around 30 to 35% of the 6 towns of usage. So now when we take that number, instead of it being 300,000, it was going to be more of expected that we should pay $600,000 for a 3rd ambulance for all these towns. If we contracted an ambulance ourselves and just said, you know what, we don't want to be a part of the system, we don't want to do it ourselves, we want to hire a contractor to come in and provide that ambulance for our town, what would that cost? $1.1 million. So you could see the number range there. 0 bid, free, that's no longer an option. It's costing us money now. So what's the best thing to do? Again, this started in summer 2022 with a needs assessment, with a whole bunch of meetings with the 5 other towns, with the fire chiefs, with decision makers, with some of the board members, looking at what is the best direction that we should be able to go. We looked at the call volume. Part of that call volume, a lot of it comes from our town. And we're told for the last several years, it's pretty much a weekly average that we're told that there's not an ambulance available for us on our first call.
Wow.
Okay, so when you look at paying into a system, and if we kept the system the same with 2 ambulances, and now they want us to pay a lot of money into that system, they're going to tell us weekly, you don't have an ambulance available for your first call in Plastow.
And for the 6 towns, those 2 ambulances aren't housed in Plastow, right?
Correct. The one's housed in Atkinson and the other one's housed in Hampstead. So as a department head, as the first decision maker in developing a budget for you all to look at and consider, I didn't think that was an acceptable answer, that now we're going to pay a decent amount of money into this system to be told weekly that we don't have an ambulance available for our first call. So that led into the discussions about developing a business model. What's the projected budget? What's our call numbers? The most important thing in this whole process is what's called a payer matrix. So I'll make sure kind of explain that a little bit. So I had our current contractor provide us an 18-month payer matrix. So not to get confused, there is a tremendous difference between ambulance billing and ambulance collections. You could bill whatever you want to bill in healthcare, but what you collect is what you're going to collect at the end of the day. So a payer matrix defines collections, which is the more important part of the business, if you will. So I was able to get an 18-month payer matrix from them that defines how many people are on Medicaid, on the transports from this area. How many people are on Medicaid? How many people are on Medicare? How many people have private insurance? Private insurance, how many people are, for example, on Blue Cross? Because they all pay differently. And that's really, at the end of the day, what you're going to collect. So I took that 18-month billing matrix, took our run numbers, broke out the percentages of how many of those are considered advanced life support transports versus basic life support transports, what's our average mileage to the different hospitals, and I sent that off to 2 different billing companies, one out of Massachusetts and one out of Vermont. Both of them are big in this area, and they understand EMS in the New England area. They both came back with almost the exact same amount of money what we would project to collect. So that made me feel really comfortable that if I give you a number on expected collections, it's going to be really close to that on a bottom end number. So they give a wide range. I chose to go with the very bottom number, but that way hopefully there's no disappointments, and there would be more of a surprise instead of a disappointment on that. So with that being said, the projected budget and why our budget is increasing so much, to add the ambulance component to our services that we're providing now, we have to have an increase of $687,000. The low end projected revenue from those 2 different billing companies are putting it around $400,000 for a 12-month period. So do understand that this first year we're not going to be starting until March, so it's only a 10-month period. But on a low end, we should be pretty close to $400,000 in projected revenue. That gives us a difference of $287,000 to do this ourselves. I'm going to remind you back to those earlier slides. The lowest we could do it for if we paid someone to do it's $300,000. So even though this looks like a tremendous increase in the budget and a $287,000 subsidy, that's still cheaper than contracting with somebody else to come in and do it. All right. As a public safety entity, a municipality public safety entity, we don't have a profit margin. What we have to pay at the end of the year is what it costs at the end of the year to provide a service. We're not paying for owners of a company to have a third house or a boat or whatever it is that their profit margin is. Municipality, we don't have that. So right off the top, I could save the taxpayers that money because we're removing ourselves from a contracted service that has a profit margin built into it, and now it's just costing us what it costs to provide that service. So when you look at the infrastructure that we're already investing in this town, and this is some of the stuff that it got a little bit frustrating for me over this last year and a half. When I look at what the taxpayers are already investing in, we're already having to invest in an ambulance. We just bought a new one for like $357,000, right? We're not collecting hardly any money using that ambulance because 50 calls a year really doesn't generate that much money. All right, 650 calls a year generate a lot of money, but not just 50. So we're investing a lot in that. We're already buying all the equipment to go in the ambulance, which includes heart monitors, ventilators, IV pumps, all the medications at the paramedic level. You're looking at $150,000 plus just in the loose equipment to go in the back of that ambulance to make it functional. We already invested in a dispatch center. You just talked about that budget there. We already have dispatchers. We're paying 24 hours a day to dispatchers. They're dispatching the fire department on a call anyway. We're sending the fire truck. Okay? So all we need to do is hire the people. We already have the infrastructure. The town's already investing in that. All we have to do is hire the people to make the system work. And now we could get back $400,000 of what we're investing in. That's roughly about 72 or so % of what we're investing. We're getting that money back from the town. The collections that we collect back from insurance fees are going directly back into the general fund. It's not going in any revolving funds. It's not going in any secret pockets here or there. It goes right back into the general fund to offset the taxpayers' commitment to this. So, and at the end, to me, and as I was talking with, I was pretty clear with people and during these discussions is at the end, the decision is pretty clear on what our choices are. We could pay more money to have a contractor come in and do it and fund a profit margin, or we could do it ourselves and we could invest in the people that it takes to run this system and now we're utilizing the resources that we're already buying for this town. The ambulances, we're going to be in the center of town now, right here on Elm Street. Our average response time is about 4.5 minutes. All right, and you see that if you follow Facebook, you'll see I post a lot of our response time data to show people that investing a little bit in your public safety pays tremendous dividends, and part of that's with our response times. So now the ambulance now, if it's in quarters, is either coming from Atkinson or Hampstead. Either direction you go, that's 10 to 12 minutes just to get to our town line. All right, so not only are you going to see the changes like you've been seeing on the fire department side of our business with the quicker response time to building fires and other emergencies, you're going to start seeing better improved response times with the ambulance for healthcare as well to these people. Another aspect of this whole thing is with contracted ambulance services, they charge a lot of money. An average ambulance bill for our taxpayers is around $4,200. If they picked you up at Walmart and took you to this local ER, you're going to pay $4,200 for that ambulance ride to go a quarter of a mile. Okay, our billing is going to probably be half of that because that's way high. When you look at the national average, that is extremely high for charging for transports. I've fielded a lot of complaints from our taxpayers about their bill. We'll run the call, they think it's us, and they call me because they're like, what can we do about this bill? And I said, unfortunately, I can't do nothing about it. This is a contracted ambulance provider. So I've taken a lot of complaints through the community about that cost. We're going to be probably less than half of that is what our charge rates are going to be. Again, we could charge whatever. That really has low impact on the collection side of stuff anyway. So that's our biggest impact on the budget. I could go line by line, but this is now included in the fire department budget to move forward with this. Other increases that are in the budget is just your typical payroll increases from previous year's pay raises. I've had a decent amount of increase to maintenance. It costs more to get our stuff, our fleet work done. We try to do as much as we can in-house, but there's a lot of stuff we can't do in-house, so we have to take it somewhere to have it fixed. Obviously, those costs have gone up tremendously. And part of our fleet is aging, so that it does cost a little bit more as your fleet ages out. So that's really the sum of the majority of our increases. The big one was this ambulance. That's why I wanted to do this presentation. And I'm going to stop talking because I know you all are tired, and I'll answer questions.
Go ahead,
So,
Tammy, you're chomping.
First of all, I just want to thank your department because a couple of weeks ago, my stepfather had fallen and I couldn't get him up. And you guys were there in like 4 minutes. Now, the ambulance service, they didn't come for like another 20, 25 minutes. It seemed like forever before they even got to the house. And so when I saw that, I said, what happens if he was having a heart attack? Or what happened, you know what I mean? So I think the safety of our taxpayers is at stake if we don't do this. So I do support that, and you know how I feel. And then to go back to the fire last week on Main Street, I had gone down there and I was very impressed on how everything ran smoothly. And I stood with the family down there, and their biggest concern was being able to stay in the house. And I just wanted to thank you and the guys at the department for that. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
So, all right, we got
got out safe.
We got a great group of staff, and they work hard.
And
So to take what you just said one step further, I'm not sure who made the actual judgment call, but I believe it was August 5th. My 88-year-old neighbor was in her home and she had a stroke. And the fire department had something going on over on 108. And somebody had to make a judgment call when the phone call came in that it was definitely a stroke. I don't know who did it, but anyhow, the contracted ambulance was ordered to turn around on Sweet Hill and come to my neighbor's home, and Plasto Rescue continued to 108 because it was felt that those technicians were needed with my neighbor. She ended up passing, but not because we don't have top-notch people. And it was amazing because I was listening and hearing and seeing everything that was going on. And I actually heard, turn it around, respond to such and such an address. And I'll forever be grateful. So he is transparent, not only him, other members of the department. They're very transparent on what's going on in town, what type of emergencies we're handling without violating HIPAA regulations. And I've been very impressed, and I'm following what he posts quite clearly. But Chief, with all due respect, sir, I'd like to ask you, how is the billing determined as of right now by this other company? Is it determined by the mileage they put on transporting? Is it put on by the time that they're involved in that specific call? Is it determined by the hospital that the individual is transported to? And does the individual have a choice on which hospital they're taken to?
So when you're asking about the billing rate, are you talking about our contractor now or what we're moving to?
No, our present situation.
So then they're almost kind of one and the same. So most ambulance services do flat rate billing in 4 different categories. So automatically you're going to fall into one of those 4 categories depending on what service of care you're going to get in the back of that ambulance. And then there's a mileage fee depending on where you go. So the overall cost, the only thing that makes the tremendous difference in that is the mileage fee depending on what hospital that you go to. So since you brought up, does the patient have a choice? In our system that we run, most definitely going to have a choice as long as they're medically safe to take to their choice hospital.
Excuse me, are you saying what you're proposing, they'll have a choice, or are you
Correct.
saying the people we have?
No, what we're proposing is going to have a choice because I've taken a lot of complaints from people, and for whatever reason, it's like Exeter's a bad name. Like they don't want to transport to Exeter Hospital for whatever reason. And a lot of our taxpayers that live here use the Exeter healthcare system. So our culture is going to be, if that destination hospital could handle that patient and they're stable enough to take them, we're not arguing with them. We're going to load them in the back of our ambulance and we're going to take them where they want to go. That's the type of service they should get.
You did that for me.
So with that said, sir, if the new situation is transporting me to Exeter, who's our backup?
So we'll have enough staffing to run a second call in-house if we need to. And then we have mutual aid agreements with like Kingston, with Salem, even potentially with the other contracted communities that have a contractor.
And you got the backup ambulance there too, right?
Right, we'll have 2 ambulances. So we're getting
2 ambulances there. So there'll be a backup there as well. Yeah. Right in Plasto.
Excellent.
So depending on what the call nature is and what's going on, it could be both ambulances out, it could be an ambulance and a fire truck out, and we're calling a mutual aid ambulance in. But we already have contingency plans, and I'm working with the dispatch center, so it'll be hopefully seamless for them who to call for that.
Just a billing question, 2-part. If you're going to be doing it, who's going to be doing the billing in-house then?
So we contract out to a billing company for what they charge percentage-wise. They charge on collections. They don't charge on what's being billed. It's pennies compared to what we'd have to hire someone to do it. So if we had to hire we'd have to hire a specialist in medical billing to do that. You're probably looking at least $100,000 a year with salary and benefits. They're going to be doing it for $15,000 to $20,000 a year. And they only bill for what's actually collected. So if they bill an individual and for whatever reason it goes to delinquent and that individual doesn't pay, we're not paying the billing company for that.
So do we have a base price that we contract this billing company for, and then they get a percentage of what they ascertain back?
It's all based on percentage on their collection. It holds them accountable because if you give them a base pay, now that makes them want to collect money. So it's better to do that with a small percentage on what they
Simply
actually
on
collect.
percentage.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yep.
Now, a major part of your presentation is the potential revenue that's going to come in to offset the cost. What's the mechanism for realizing that with respect to from a budget perspective. I mean, we can't impound the revenue coming in from the ambulance service, right? I mean, it's just going to go into the general fund.
Correct.
Okay.
Similar-
So then the MEC, you get a budget that comes up again, it's going to say this, and
Similar to like your motor vehicle permits, your building inspection, when we do our estimated revenues on the MS 424 to the state, we will include that as an estimate. So you've got your gross amount of your appropriations, you have your gross amount of your revenues, and then you're looking at that net difference being raised through property taxes. So currently, based on our level of assessment, $100,000 is about 7 cents on a tax rate. So $200,000, that's 14 cents. So it's, on a $400,000 home, you're talking $56 for total impact.
but I guess what I'm saying is just that, for people listening here, is that we're going to realize the impact of those revenues coming into the general fund, from a budgetary perspective. We're not just merely saying that it shows up as a line item of $400,000 when it's audited going into the general fund, and then we're presented with a budget that's not realizing that revenue. I mean, it's going to have to be pulled out like as a warrant article?
No, just like it's going to be included as part of the big picture with your general fund.
Right, it's in the general fund.
Right.
Okay.
No warrant article.
But this budget is going to be reoccurring.
Correct. And so the revenue will be reoccurring every year as well.
How is the revenue going to be applied to offset the expense of saying that we're going to bring an ambulance service in rather than having it used for other purposes?
It'll be the same thing we do probably at the end of every year, right? The selectmen have the choice with that dollar and.
Well, I mean, no,
Basically asking to offset the tax rate.
I'm not necessarily following you, but if we have a $10 million budget right now,
I'm actually, this is, Jay just identified a mechanism.
Yeah.
You said that, we have an expense here, this is what we budgeted for. We know that there's revenue coming in, and then we want to offset the tax rate. Is it just by fiat that we're going to have the selectmen decide that we're going to use X amount to reduce the tax rate?
and I'm going to say, no, that is not the case, because when we set the property tax rate, if what I'm hearing you say, when we bring the rate to the selectmen and they want to possibly use an additional amount of surplus to help buy the rate down, it's not even to that point. We're recognizing 400,000 of revenue as part of the initial process before we even get to the selectmen.
So it should
That's
bring it down.
That's what I want just said out loud.
Bringing down the rate before it even gets to us at that point.
That's what I want to hear out loud, that there's a mechanism for realizing.
Well, and that's the MS 424 that I was referring to, is it would go on there. So in the preliminary calculation, it's already accounted for. So by the time it gets for their decision-making, it's a net amount.
And that was done that way on purpose because the revenue obviously is not 100% of the cost. And we all feel it's the most important thing to do with that is to put it right back to the taxpayer and not really, there's no choice for it to go anywhere else except offset that.
But it's still a savings.
It's, at the end of the day, it's still be cheaper.
And I'm sitting here doing quick math.
Yeah.
And when push comes to shove, it's a savings. Long-term, short-term.
Yep.
The town's already investing so much in the infrastructure. It would be bad. It would be, it's like, why would you want to spend more money now on a contractor to come in when we could do it ourselves?
Well, it's the savings on the dollars plus the savings in response time, and you can't put money on a life.
No, you can't.
Like I said, my neighbor, they turned to somebody, I don't know who made the call. I don't know if you made it or somebody else made it. They turned it around on Sweet Hill Road. They did a 3-point turn and said, respond at such and such an address. Get that ambulance there. It's a stroke.
Did you have something?
Yeah, when we first started those discussions, I had my concerns about this whole process and going out on our own. And, it was a daunting task. And the chief has done a great job of getting all the information and presenting an excellent plan. When I was concerned, I went to him. We had a meeting. He answered a lot of my questions, a lot of my doubts. And we talked about, one of the things we talked about was a schedule. So can you talk about the schedule that we're going to have for
The staffing schedule?
staffing schedule? And
Absolutely. And I'll even talk a little bit about the amount of applicants that we've had for it, which has been overwhelming.
Well, that was my
So-
biggest concern, and I said it to you before, was the applicants being able to get paramedics. That was my biggest concern.
Our full-time position, and we're not going to have any problem filling the full-time positions
that
at all.
was one of my biggest concerns was staff along with Bill. And,
Okay, go ahead.
the other concern that I had was how we're going to staff them, right? So you talked about 2 24 hours per week, 3 24 hours per week, and then there's the Kelly Day. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that impacts the budget as opposed to a 2-day, 2 24-hour week as opposed to a 3 24-hour week?
Yes, let me get you out of the scheduling hole there.
Yes.
So, with any successful business, when you have competitors out there, and this town has competitors, right? Because we have other towns employing people. So as an employer, we have competitors. If you want to be successful, your business has to have some type of hook, right? If you open up this place and they're doing the exact same things, why go to this one versus this one, right? So I developed several different things to create a hook to attract employees. And so far, I'm knock on wood, we have a ton of applications to go through, which is a good thing. Part of that hook is in the New England area, so in the states up in here, most of your fire departments run a 24-hour shift service. Meaning, so you work 24 hours at a time, but there's 4 different shifts, which give you an average of 42 hours a week, right? So in the simplest thing, you'd work 1 day and you're off 4. In a 28-day period, that shift schedule works 7 times.
Wow.
Okay? Not a bad schedule. Not a bad schedule at all. I'm going to tell you that the rest of the country uses 3 24-hour shifts instead of 4. All right. So that's one of my hooks I had is if you look at the New Hampshire public safety community, a lot of the people that are currently working in these fire departments work a second job. Okay. That tells me they're either not making enough money or they have a lot of time off and they want to make more money or they're bored or all of the above. So they're willing to work more. They just don't have that opportunity to do that at their employer because a lot of them all have second jobs where they're working a 24-hour shift somewhere else. So my hook is, okay, if the rest of the country is successful at this, it's a successful work schedule. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing that I just generated. We're doing 3 shifts instead of 4, and we're keeping the hourly rate competitive of what other towns are paying as an hourly rate. But because we're only doing 3 shifts instead of 4, I get to offer you a lot more base hours in a year. All right. So that automatically puts us in a playing field of 20,000 plus more a year. That money is going towards your retirement. Your second job doesn't go towards your retirement. So I'm offering more base hours, keeping that same competitive rate of an hourly rate. Now you're making a lot more money a year, and that is cheaper for me to do that or for this town to do that than to have a 4th shift. All right. And now you're only working 9 days in 28 days instead of 7. Okay. Working 9 days out of 28 days isn't that terrible. Now you're there for 24 hours. Okay. But that's not a terrible schedule. So there's a lot of different ways you could break that schedule up now and how they work. So I let our current crew that's there now that's transitioning over to this, they got to pick. What kind of schedule do you want to go to? So what they want to go to, and this gets a little bit confusing, but you're on a day, so you're on for 24 hours, you're off for 24 hours, you're on for 24 hours, you're off for 24 hours, and you're on for 24 hours. So there's 3 days that you're on with 2 breaks and 2 days off in between, and then you're off for 4 days in a row. Okay, so it's really cyclic. It's a pretty nice schedule. You got a 4-day break every 5 days. You're getting a 4-day break. And then with that, as a firefighter, the labor law allows us to work as an employer. We could work firefighters 212 hours in a 28-day work cycle. So when you work that 3-shift schedule like that, in 28 days, you typically work 9 shifts. 9 shifts is 216 hours. So we're right there at the threshold of what we could work them before we have to start paying a little bit of overtime. Okay. 4 to 5 times a year, and it's not super cyclic with that on-off cycle, but 4 to 5 times a year, they will work day 1 and day 28 of that cycle, which now puts them working 10 shifts in 28 days instead of 9. So this is where what's called in the fire service, what's called a Kelly Day. That Kelly Day is given to them. That's not figured in their annual work hours. All right, that's a day that really doesn't exist in their annual work hours. It's a regular shift day for them, but because the way it felt, we're going to create 24 hours of overtime. So that employee now has the opportunity when they're on their Kelly period to take off any one of those 10 shifts in that 28-day cycle. They could take off. If they don't want to take off, they're going to make overtime for it. Being a small department, I can't really offer a cost savings on that because our minimum staffing is our minimum staffing, and that's where we're at, right? If we were a really big department, I might be able to save some money and say, okay, we normally have 12 people on a day, and we could go down to 11, so we don't have to backfill it. But I got backfill that day no matter what they decide to do. You're only really saving halftime. You know, when you're looking at overtime pay, you're only really saving the halftime. If I have another full-timer working, it's no really savings at all. If I bring in a per diem staff to work it, I'm only really saving the halftime. By the time I outfit a per diem person and train them to work those 4 to 5 days a year, it's not a significant saving. So it's kind of a benefit for the employee that if they want to work it, they're going to make a little bit of overtime. So that's for a firefighter, paramedic. Another hook that we're doing that maybe one other fire department's doing in New Hampshire is we're hiring paramedics only. Okay, we're offering that. Most other fire departments, they want you to be a firefighter and a paramedic. Well, they're not there, but there's a lot of paramedics only out there. So we've gotten a lot of good applications from just people that are paramedics only. Their Kelly Day works a little bit different because I can't work them 212 hours in a 28-day cycle. I could only work them 40 hours in a 7-day cycle. So their base pay will reflect a base salary up to 40 hours and then 8 hours of overtime on some weeks and 32 hours of overtime on some weeks. That's part of their base salary, whatever they're going to make in the year. During their Kelly period, which is the same as a firefighter, same shift, if you will, what gets them is on average on this type of work schedule, you work 2 days 1 week, you work 2 days the next week, you work 2 days the third week, and then the fourth week you work 3 days. All right, and then that's kind of starts over. You could have 6 weeks in between that you're only working 2 days, and then that third week pops up because that third week kind of just moves around a little bit, but it's always a 3 and a 4 split. During that Kelly period, they'll have 2 weeks. Well, they'll have 6 days, 3 weeks one day and 3 weeks the next. That'll be their Kelly period that they could take off any one of those 6 days to knock them back down to 2 shifts for that week. If they want to work it, they'll make the overtime. So that's my other hook, if you will, is I'm creating a work environment that they're already doing now with their full-time job and their 4 shifts. They're working part-time a bunch somewhere else, and I'm letting them come to one place to work. Let's come work here and work one job and make way more money than you're working at your primary job. And it's cheaper on us to do that instead of having 4 shifts. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So,
and I asked you to explain that because my concern was about possibly burning out people by working, 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 24 off. So that really explains that, you're going to have people that are going to come work here. It looks like you have a good pool of possible candidates right now, and they're not going to get overworked.
No, and to give you an example, that on 4-day off schedule that I just explained, that's what most departments are already doing up here, except you give a 5-day break instead of a 4-day break. So you already have the on-off that people are used to. The only thing that we're doing a little bit different is you get 4-day break instead of a 5 in between. And like I said, if you ask most of the people that work for those departments, I guarantee you a high percentage of them are working a 24-hour job during that 4-day break. So let's do something a little different than everybody else, and let's create a hook and attract some really good employees.
All right, perfect. Any other questions?
Paramedics are not included under fire retirement?
If it's a paramedic only, they are under Group 1 retirements. They're Group 2. So they're like a regular town employee. Yep.
One last question. If there's a call for service from the new emergency room, are we transporting from that emergency room to another hospital? Or are we only transporting to the new emergency room?
So we could transport a patient to the new emergency room as long as the patient's condition allows them to go there, which we've not been doing, but our contractor's been doing that a lot here lately. So it's a good sign. We only would go to the emergency room to transport someone from there somewhere else if it's what's called a 911 type of call. So say the general public, sometimes they don't know where they should go or shouldn't go, and they're having chest pain, so they go to the ER. Well, if it turns out to be a heart attack, okay, that patient needs to be transported immediately to a cardiac center, right? Parkland, the parent hospital to this emergency room has their own interfacility ambulances. So non-emergency stuff, they're taking care of that in-house. If they can't take care of that in-house, they're actually contracted with AMR to take care of anything that they can't do in-house. If they have that ambulance at this ER, which they float around, they're going to take that 911 transfer. We don't have to take it. If that ambulance isn't there, it's in the patient's best interest that we get over there and get that patient to another hospital. So we're not looking at doing a lot of those throughout the year. The other thing that we might assist with is sometimes they'll fly a patient out, and we would go pick up the helicopter crew at the park and ride, bring them over to the hospital, and then bring them back. We still get the bill for that. So even though our care providers really aren't doing hardly anything at all with that patient, it's the flight crew doing it, we get the bill for that as well. So good questions.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Commercial versus residential calls. Do you have the numbers off the top of your head? Just out of curiosity.
I've not done this year, but things are pretty static with that. 60% of our call volume is to a residential address. Our biggest hitters, and I don't want to throw any particular names, and that's a common question that people throw out there, especially in social media land. It's all because of the commercial district. We don't go to a lot of the commercial addresses out there on 125 for calls for service. All right. There's very few that we go to all the time. And if you want to get rid of your grocery stores and Walmart, that might impact it a little bit, but that's where we go to consistently. We're not going to 90% of our commercial addresses for calls for service, right? It's not a huge impact on us. We don't go to a lot of car crashes. So I was kind of surprised about that. I actually looked that up the other day because someone actually had that question. 4% of our call volume is car crashes. Okay. Like I said, about 60% of our call volume is to the residential address. Majority of all of our building fires have been at a residential address. We've had knock on wood, we've had very few incidences of building fires that are actually at a commercial building. Now, we do get some trouble alarms with fire alarm systems at some of these buildings, but that's a low resource intensive type of call. And then when you look at the medical calls, I don't think we've ever been to Staples for a medical call. I don't think we've been to the jewelry stores for a medical call. We don't go to these storage lockers on any calls. We don't go to many dealerships on calls. We don't go to the diamond store. We're just not going to those calls. We go to the businesses that have a high traffic volume. So,
thank you.
All right. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the fire budget for 1 $1,534,503.
Get a second? Second by Jonathan. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. It's 400. And I do know in the next week or so, the chief has a presentation out on, it'll be on cable TV around this whole subject. I think it ran about a half hour, somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
We would try to keep it around 30 minutes, but it's a really good question and answer thing that should answer a lot of questions that are out there. I kind of purposely waited until kind of after tonight to throw out some public speaking dates,
Yep.
because I'm sure after people watching tonight might have some questions that they might not have come if I did it before tonight. So I'm going to partner with the library probably and some other places to offer a little question and answer session.
Yeah, so there'll be something on cable, a night or two at the library. I mean, it's important for the public to have their questions answered on this.
Absolutely.
It's a change.
So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that will be for the budget, so I'd like to thank the Budget Committee for coming in. Hopefully it worked, this format, instead of having them come back out the night before. And if it works, we'll hopefully maybe do it again every year if this works this way.
I think it was excellent.
I think it certainly gave some insight, and I'm a newbie.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't know if it's Dean still up there, if it's Frank, but we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess. And then we'll be back. I'll get to it. Welcome back to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, part 2. Okay, well, we still got a few items left on the agenda. We'll head up to we'll do the cemetery construction first.
So as part of the project that we have going with the expansion of the new cemetery, which is coming along very well, we have a agreement or a contract to do the final phase of it, which would be the grading of it, the putting the loom down, seating, fixing some drainage issues, but then also extending out the roadway through the back part of the cemetery onto Stephen Savage Way. So that having been said, we have approximately $45,000, I believe, in the trust fund that remains available. This contract is for in excess of that, but we heard Mr. Garlington, mention tonight that he has some of his drainage money out of this year's budget. So that and a little bit of paving money also out of his budget should be enough to cover this contract so that we can take a warrant article off of next March and get this project done and to bed, so to speak, before winter. So
Plus, we won't have to take any money out of the general fund, is that correct? If you're using money from Danny's budget?
it's from it's budget money. It's currently, it's excess money out of the budget right now.
Right, so it's going to come between,
The 45 and the 67 to finish it up.
right, so we have left over another budget item money, will be added to the 45, and that's what we get to.
Yes. So we wouldn't be raising and appropriating any new money. We're
Right.
using existing monies that have been raised.
Because I'm just looking, you see why I'm saying that? Because I look at this and it said the remaining balance we paid for from the general fund. But it's really coming out of a budget, not the general fund. Is that a correct statement?
Well, it's the general fund budget.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're looking to use 27,000 out of the general fund budget.
22.
22. Oh, 45, sorry. I didn't carry one.
Yeah. So, some of the drainage project money that he has it's been a problem over there. And then a little bit of paving to put the binder coat and the like to extend the roadway out.
And then just to say it again, we won't need a warrant article for that.
Correct.
So this would be done, and at this point, it would just be mowing it,
Correct.
maintaining it until
Yes.
we start.
The project
Selling
came
those
together,
plots.
the project came together pretty quick,
Go ahead.
from start to finish.
Maybe talk to the Conservation Commission about a couple of trees, maybe they'll contribute and, just with the construction that's ongoing on the backside, it'll be good to get it all done and wrapped up. So.
Yep, I agree. Anyone have any questions? Good.
No, pretty straightforward.
Make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from Mark Vines and Sons Excavating LLC in the amount of $67,637. The work is for the new section of the cemetery. Funding will come from the balance of the cemetery capital reserve account in the amount of $45,000. The remaining balance will be paid for from the general fund.
I'll second it.
Second by Tammy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So 400. Next, Greg, the replacement of the town hall boiler.
This was brought before the board a few meetings ago, and I believe Mr. Britton had some reservations with it. He met with our maintenance supervisor, Jim DeBonis, and we have an updated quote. Based on that conversation that they had, and that I believe Mr. Britton was satisfied with the combo that he had with Mr. DeBonis. So with that, we have an updated quote that's, one is for 34,500 and the other a smaller unit of 28,500. You see, and it is a recommendation, obviously, to go with a more efficient boiler and system. We're 2 weeks out, and with the heating season coming up, that's why we're bringing it before the board tonight so that we can get on the list and get this done before it gets, too much colder.
So
So
how long do they anticipate it would take to get this done?
there's a 2 week lead time, so I would imagine.
That's installation, everything? In 2 weeks, I know you get the boiler, but they can install it pretty quick.
I think it'll be a 1 to 2 day job.
Any questions from anyone?
I did talk to Mr. Britton today, and he was on board with the $34,500, which we do have the money set aside in a capital reserve fund to more than cover this.
So this comes out of the town building trust fund, so.
That's correct.
So it was planned for, really?
Yes.
Yes.
It was planned.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from Reed Mechanical Corporation to replace the 2 existing Munchkin boilers and upgrade to 2 Harrison HTP Elite Ultra 95% dilute boilers to the town hall. Total price, including installation, is $34,500. The funds will come from the town building trust fund. The current balance in that fund is approximately $65,000.
Second by Jay. All those in favor?
Aye.
400. Now we can talk about the cruisers. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. So hopefully, and if we had most of our questions answered, we may still have some.
That is correct. So I had the officer that brought, there are several vehicles that we have, and 3 of them are in excess of 100,000 mileage. At least 2 vehicles are in excess of 10 years old. So given the lead time and the fact that 2 of them have failed inspection, that's where, the discussion started with, replacing them now to utilize the $100,000. The preliminary estimates, as the chief and the captain had said, is in the neighborhood of a 2023 fully equipped with a mobile data terminal. And this is net because they've got grants that are available too for some of the work. For a 2023 is $72,000. For a 2024, it's approximately $82,000. So with our planning of the 100,000 to possibly, when we got the ones for the 20 and 30,000 that they have mileage on them now, which I can't believe, those were around 55,000. So with $100,000, we were hoping for close to 2. Now we're a little over 1. So there was some discussion about, whether we replace 1, replace 2. So there is ARPA money. If the board decides that they want to replace both of them, we could take the balance of the trust fund, the $100,000, and pay for the difference out of ARPA. There's approximately $300,000 of ARPA money that is left.
If we replace these 2 cruisers, when will the next ones be up to be replaced? Because we just did 2 a year ago, so this would be 2 this year.
Right.
When would they be looking again for another one?
I can't say for sure, but if these 2 replace 2 of the vehicles that have over 100,000, that still leaves another vehicle with 106,000 miles on it.
So it's 1 other additional vehicle.
And it leaves a 2011 and a 2013 still being utilized.
I have a question. What about a trade-in? Have we been given like a trade-in for the other 2?
Well, I mean, normally we would sell them at auction, but considering we do have, I would want to take a good look at those to see if we cannot utilize them for our building inspection department and or recreation or our health officer. We had talked a little bit, maybe a week or two ago, about a plan for vehicles. This may get us by in the short term so that we can get a solid plan for others moving forward.
So you're looking to repurpose them?
I would look to repurpose them.
And spend, what, around $4,000 to fix both of them?
Yes.
Within the current year's budget, we have the money to fix it. It's in the maintenance line.
Yes.
So you fix those, replace two.
So so what is this gonna do to the cap reserve? So this will decimate that,
It'll wipe it out.
right? So then,
If we get two vehicles, I mean, even if we get one if they do have a leftover 2023, that's still, we're looking at $72,000 if we just replace one. So there'd be about $28,000, give or take, left in that.
And then we can use ARPA for the other one,
For the difference.
Or we could use.
for the difference.
For the difference.
So we have to wipe out the 100,000.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, you could
Or you
use.
do the capital reserve, right, for one and ARPA for the other.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
that would leave you
leave.
with 28,000 roughly.
You could do that as well.
We got us, we're probably gonna do warrant article anyways, right?
Well,
I
yeah,
imagine the police
we
probably
want to
would.
maintain that plan, so we're gonna have to still put money in the cap reserve
Right.
for the next
But
one
these
down the
guys-
road.
These guys are out on calls though with vehicles 100 plus.
That is correct.
That kind of becomes safety,
I
right?
mean, the whole game plan was, when we got the two, was to stay in front of the cycle.
Right.
Unbeknownst to us at that particular time, now we have the actual details of mileage and everything else. I'm all for keeping the difference of 28 in and pulling a second vehicle out of
ARPA.
And none of these vehicles go home with any of the officers, right?
I think that's probably
Okay.
the right way to do it, right?
Because
Because
then
the price.
it's still building up for that next cycle again.
But then out of the capital, then if the warrant will pass this year, then you replace another one next year. That way they're kind of,
Right. We're on the front of the cycle.
it's amazing things that get unearthed that we're still paying for.
It's all right, you know, it's the job.
We're getting there.
Hey, the ball was dropped, not by anybody that's
No.
on the.
No, but
field
you know,
today.
we can only deal with what's in front of us. And
Right.
I don't know, I'm good either way, but I think I'm in favor of the two cruises. It's a matter of where do we want to do the money from.
I'm in favor of the two cruises and keeping some in the cap reserve so that it sets
That's
the
how I-
precedent to move it forward, to keep the cycle going.
That's
It's
how I-
not at a zero base.
That's how I think.
We cannot move ARPA into a capital reserve
Right.
fund. So
So are we in,
That's how I'm leaning.
so you want a motion?
you may have to modify that a little bit. I didn't
Oh, I got-
anticipate.
Well, I motion to direct the town manager to purchase two new cruisers. Funds for the first cruiser to be removed from the $100,000 capital reserve. Funds for the second cruiser to be taken out of the ARPA funds.
Second.
Second by Jay.
But wait a minute, the 100,000, I thought we were gonna keep money in the,
We are.
okay, all right, I just wanna make
Vehicle out
sure.
of that 100,000.
One
Okay,
from cap reserve, one from ARPA.
okay.
And that keeps 28 to
Yes.
25, depending upon which.
And I think we've made good use out of the ARPA funds, right?
Absolutely.
For what we've done,
There hasn't been a frivolous dollar spent.
no,
out
we've
of
used
that.
it for cruises. We've done a lot of it for public safety.
Right, and it's offset a lot of tax dollars
It has.
because what we put into public safety has been a boatload of that money. So do we need a vote on that?
Yes, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400. And there is one item we need to add to the agenda. It's the Rockingham Planning Commission dues. At the October 4th, 2023 meeting, the planning board voted unanimously to recommend that the Board of Selectmen pay the annual dues request from Rockingham Planning Commission, amount of $8,125. The dues are calculated at $1.03 capita on an estimated population of 7,888. RPC has always been a valuable resource available to the planning board and department staff. They're always knowledgeable and very responsive to questions and requests. They provide a multitude of services such as mapping, statistical data, and offer assistance with the build-out, analysis, and master plan updates. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Isn't this budgeted?
Yes, it is.
When we just pay it? What do we,
Yeah.
we need authorization to
I believe the planning board wanted to make the recommendation
Just
to the
make a
board to move
recommendation.
forward,
So we have it.
so. But yes, the money is in as part of the budget. It's nothing additional. It's
So no votes
It's-
needed, right?
a formality as much as anything to bring it before, to make sure that the board is in concurrence with the planning board.
It's a great resource and money well spent for the town, my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
There you go.
All right.
Do we
Make a
have-
motion to direct the town manager to pay the Rockingham Planning Commission RPC dues in the amount of $8,125.
Second.
Second by Jonathan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400. Do we have any non-public minutes to approve?
We do. How about we just take one and pass them down?
We're closer.
It's like a bottle of beer. Take one down, pass it around. Once we're ready, if someone wants to make a motion to accept.
Make a motion to approve the September 11th, 2023 non-public minutes and to keep them sealed. Right?
Yes, perfect.
I'll second it.
Second by Tammy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So 400. We get to approve the consent agenda. The agenda items, right, with the accounts payable manifest for the week of October 12th and the 19th of 2023. The BOS draft minutes of October 2nd, 2023, and there was one veteran tax exemption application. Do you want to make a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Jonathan, second.
Second.
Second by Jay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 400. What do you got for us, Greg?
Back in the saddle.
Come on down.
Oh, Greg?
Rockingham County, we're still kind of on a holding pattern for the tax rate. Rockingham County has set their apportionment, so that Plastow's share of that has gone from $973,408 up to $1,057,302. So it's approximately 6 cents on the tax rate. So I estimate we'll go from 71 cents for the county to 77 cents. In your packets, based on your request, there is a general fund revenue comparison. I've got current through month end, current, prior, and then prior year total so that you can take a look at it. As far as water goes, as I was sitting here tonight, the recommendation from our water operator, we had just gone over to free chlorine as a disinfection for the water system. They are now recommending because towns upstream of us are coming off of the chlorine, going back to the monochloramines, that we do that as well. So we're looking at within a week or 10 days, as soon as we can get notice out, we will be switching back over, that the DBPs have come down and the like. So it's, again, still being proactive with the water system. So that is good. Water system as well. I know some have asked, and I believe you can confirm that the contractors for Pennachuck have been up your way. They're working in the Partridge.
Yep, they're on Partridge Lane right now.
System, and that according to them, they will be hooking in the other side of town over on Walton Road, Route 125, Twin Ridge, up in that area. So they are planning on, it's going to be a nighttime shutdown. They're going to be working all night up there from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning to get things done, so they minimize the impact of all the customers, because they're going to have to shut the water off completely up there. It won't affect users on our system, but it will be the new connection into that Twin Ridge neighborhood. So that is hopefully going to be done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So with that, our water consumption will probably double. So it's an important hookup, as far as the health, of the water and the system and the flushing needs, and it's it will be a good connection.
Awesome. That's great news.
I sent some preliminary numbers over to the town administrator over in Atkinson on the dispatch contract. We did very late today receive our updates from Primex, where we have our new rates, which according to the CAP program, we're locked in at 7% in property liability, which they're going to use the full 7%. And we're locked in with workers' comp at 10%, which they're going to utilize that as well. Library, as I mentioned, our health insurance rates did come back. We're still working through the numbers and the like and seeing how these work into the budget with what we have currently. And I'll report back to the board on that in the future. I think that's it for now.
That's it?
Yeah.
You're slacking. No, I think now we've been through all the budgets, right?
All budgets.
So
Except for water.
Except for water, but I think what we should probably do at the next meeting, now let everyone digest it, and let's revisit any budgets that we want to revisit. I think that'd be a good time to do it, so we'll put that on the agenda for next time, if that makes sense for everyone. It just gives us time now to digest and go back and look at everything. I'm sure there's some questions. Let's see if there's anything that can be done or not be done anywhere, right?
And I was talking with the budget committee chair. She's going to see, I'm going to get a full packet off to them. They usually meet on Tuesday nights. So if they don't meet the 24th, they're not likely to meet on Halloween night, which means they would go into the first Tuesday of November. She was going to poll her committee members and see if they were willing to start next week, next Tuesday night, the 24th.
Right, and then if they have things they want us to revisit, and we have things we want to revisit, we can certainly do it. So, yeah, that'll be good. Let's see, that. Selectmen's reports. Tammy?
I have an Elder Affairs meeting tomorrow at 1. And then next Friday, we have our Halloween movie for Elder Affairs, 1 to 3. And it's going to be over at the library. Ghostbusters, the new one, the newer version. That's all I have.
Jonathan, other than your tan?
Everything's going forward. I've got Old Home Day tomorrow. I've got Energy on Wednesday. I've got really nothing except we do have to get together at some point and talk about visiting that solar bank up in.
Yep.
Sorry. That's okay.
No problem.
Still going on right now?
Yeah, well, only a couple more minutes.
No worries.
And I guess that's one budget that's the one budget we haven't done yet, right? Old Home Day.
Do we approve emergency management?
We've got most of them. I'd have to go back.
Yeah, so we'll do the next one, we'll maybe just call up each one, see if anyone wants to revisit, and we'll go from there if we haven't touched one.
I know Old Home Day is probably going to want to come in. I've had some discussions, and I was just talking to Greg before the meeting started, so we're probably going to want to put them on our agenda
Yeah, we
soon.
can put them on the next agenda, right?
Okay.
Because it'd be nice if we could have our portion of the budget wrapped up this month. And then if
Okay.
there's a couple here and there we gotta revisit as we go through November. I mean, that puts us in pretty good shape, I think.
And they're trying to move forward with planning of Old Home Day, so they need to come in front of us for the funds.
Yep.
So,
So it'd be nice to hear the ideas too,
okay.
you know, what they.
Well, Jonathan will be at that meeting tomorrow, so.
Very good. Jay?
We have a CIP meeting tomorrow night.
Is it tomorrow night?
I believe it may be postponed.
Okay. We have a postponed CIP meeting. And then I have.
Thanks for letting me know.
Thanks for letting me know. And I think there's an energy committee meeting on the community power on Wednesday. So I'll have those coming up. And I think that's it.
I attended recreation meeting the other night. It was a workshop. Attended a conservation committee meeting as well. And what conservation is going to do with the trails, where we had talked about it, where we had the grant that they were going to 50% match, and then we decided we didn't want to accept that, because then that would have meant they would have had to keep the park open during summer rec.
Right.
So that portion, which is roughly about, I think it was around 20,000 or whatever, conservation is going to give that money to recreation to cover that grant, what we would have received. So
It's well received.
It's very well, it was a very generous offer, and thank you to conservation for agreeing to do that. The other thing, look, I mentioned it earlier, very briefly, I sat down with the fire chief for cable TV. We've already filmed it. I wish, Dean was a little bit better with the makeup, but he only had so much to work with. So it's just the chief and myself asking him questions, the chief answering, all around the ambulance and what it means. So that'll be out there if anyone can watch that as well, because that's a lot of information to take in if you're just listening to it tonight for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing, we got the events coming up. The toddler trick or treat will be on Friday, 10/27. I believe you need to register with Jen for that. The pumpkin lighting will be the following night on Saturday, 10/28. The time for that will be 4 to 7. They'll have a food truck here. I know Rico Burritos will be here. And they're trying to also get a dessert truck here if possible. They'll have a DJ here. There'll be an inflatable corn maze and games. So carve your pumpkins, Jay. Make sure you have them there.
On it.
And I know the regular trick or treat obviously is on Halloween itself. That's 5 to 7, which is the same as it always is every year. Going back to the toddler trick or treat, that's between 10 and 12. And I know they meet at the gazebo. They hand out maps. They go to the area businesses around here. I know it still seems like it's a ways out, but wreath making. It's far away, but it's not that far. November 28th at Pollard, then they'll have November 29th for the seniors at Vic Gary. And the tree lighting with Santa coming to town is set up for December 3rd.
Hey, I haven't even carved my turkey yet.
Hey, I haven't had my chocolate bar yet for Halloween yet either. But it's crazy though how, the holidays are upon us. It really starts with Halloween and then it's like you pound right on through. Anybody have anything else they wanted to bring up? Looks like that'll do it. We'll end the meeting at 8:38.
Good night.
Thank you and have a good night.
Good night.